I'll call this meeting to order on January 27th of 2020. Happy New Year to everybody.
Happy New Year. Too.
First agenda item, I'd like to appoint Chris as the timekeeper.
All right, now it's my issue. All right.
Now it's your issue.
All right, let's do it.
Yeah. We have a full agenda, I don't think, nothing too crazy.
That's the first time in 2 months, so. It's the first time of the year, so
Yeah,
we'll have to stick to it.
okay, trust in you.
All right.
Number 2, public appearances of non-agenda items. We have none, I see. Item 3, approval of the minutes. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes as distributed in our agenda packet that was sent out via email?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
Very good, we have a first and second motion. Do we have a discussion on any edits?
Yes. This was on the 2020 solid waste collection calendar, and I only printed out part of the page, so I'm not sure which number it's under, but there were several items missing under the action items. It truncated after dates, and the rest of it was missing, so, this is the section that was gone. See the first bullet where it says dates?
Yep. Just looking at the draft minutes to figure out.
Sorry, after I printed
this
that
is-
out, I thought, shoot, where did that come from?
Oh, here it
This is point
Solid
4C.
waste collection calendar.
See, the next sentence ends at dates,
Oh,
and
in F,
it's
I
not
see.
supposed to end there.
Oh, that's interesting, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, it looks like. Oh yeah,
So
that is missing.
the action items are in there.
It looks like this needs to be formatted.
I mean, it's,
Something's wrong, if you just
Yeah,
want
we'll make
Yeah,
it match.
I think it has, yeah, I can change the format. All the same information is in there.
okay.
Removing those 2 words, commissioners would like to see those dates moved earlier. The moved earlier, I got an edit response from somebody that asked to remove those words, so I did.
Oh, okay. Well, that sentence doesn't really make any sense, because we saw the brush collection dates, and what we talked about
Yeah.
was moving them earlier.
Yep. Okay, I'll take a look at that.
Anything else? All right, all in favor of approving the minutes with the one minor adjustment, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? I think the motion
And I
carries.
abstained because I wasn't here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nancy and Kim abstain. It's okay. I think the ayes still carry. All right. Moving on, if there's nothing to object. Item 4A, new business, the OEI report. Bill, you want to take it away?
Yeah, this is going to be a pretty quick one. So the Office of Energy Innovation grant that we were party to last February, I believe it began. And this was the grant that included Middleton, Fitchburg, Sun Prairie, Waukesha, Marshall, and Stoughton, and Monona. So we've been working with Slipstream on benchmarking kind of where our energy usage is at, looking at sort of what are the low-hanging fruit items available to each of the municipalities for either pursuing renewable energy or energy efficiency that would make a dent in our energy usage and our overall energy expenditures. So the draft report came out in mid-December, and I've been going through the report, both the main body and then a Fitchburg specific chapter, just kind of making notes on comments and questions. I'm going to get those back to Slipstream by the end of this month, and they're hoping to have the final report ready by the middle of February, so before our next meeting. Initially, I'd put this agenda item in for January because I was expecting the final report would be available by now. So I can certainly speak to some of what's in the report now and kind of give a preview, but the final version will be ready in February, and I'm going to be working with Jeanette Lazaks from Slipstream to put together kind of a one-page summary and a few PowerPoint slides that make it a little bit more easily presentable in kind of a condensed format. So I'll probably put it back on the February agenda as well. Yep.
Does their report include payback periods?
It does.
Okay.
Yeah, it does.
Good.
What are your general thoughts on it?
My general thoughts, it's a good amount of information. I think there's a lot of stuff we already knew about. So we had done a retro-commissioning study previously and had a number of items identified as possible energy savings on retro-commissioning with kind of our HVAC systems in the main campus buildings, and those are repeated. A lot of LED upgrades that they identified, which we're aware of. If we can transition halogens and incandescents to LEDs, there are major electricity savings there. I think it looks like a relatively conservative path. I think they identified about 18% of our energy savings, or 18% of our energy bill that would be reduced by some of the items they identified. But a lot of that had to do with what's low-hanging fruit, what's easy to change now, what's maybe nearing the end of its life, so we're not, if you have a boiler that's inefficient but it has 20 years left on it, what's now that cost benefit of replacing it 20 years before it was slated to be? So things like that. I think it's not an overly aggressive recommendation, which I like because it makes it feel much more doable. I don't think that it's a pie in the sky. I don't think it's a pie in the sky path that would be difficult to achieve. At the same time, 18% is, if we get that and if make a couple other changes this year, that still only puts us at about 50% of our goal to get to 100% renewable electricity by 2030. So it still leaves a lot of room for us to identify where else we're going to make some of those changes. But I think it's a really good starting point. I think it's going to spark a lot of good discussion.
Do they have the retro commissioning report to refer to?
I'm not sure all of the information that was shared with them initially. I don't know if the RCX report was sent over to them.
It's interesting that they repeated some of those because I thought most of them that were low-hanging fruit were already implemented.
Mm-hmm. There are a few, I believe, that are still outstanding, and there were several buildings that they did conduct a walkthrough and a few that they weren't able to, and so they had some kind of general assumptions about improvements for those buildings based on what's our understanding of a standard building of that type for a city government. So some of the recommendations may not necessarily be applicable. I still need to, once I have a little bit more finalized version of the report, I want to forward it to Kevin Richmond over in facilities and talk to him about which of these things are feasible, what maybe is already on his radar, and what might be new to him that it would be worth looking into.
Did you get the feeling that it was customized enough to Fitchburg rather than like a boilerplate that they just...
I did, yeah.
Good.
Yep, there was a lot of variety in recommendations based on the city. Obviously, Monona being essentially an enclave within Madison, they have no room to expand, and so doing a lot of ground solar panels is not really an option for them. So we have some of our Fitchburg water utilities, some of the water pumps have a decent amount of lawn that provide opportunities for some pole-mounted solar panels. So we had recommendations like that where they wouldn't have.
Good.
That's cool. I'm looking forward to it.
Yep.
Reading about it and talking about it next meeting, if that's what the schedule appears to be.
That's the plan. I'll confirm it with Jeanette before we get the agenda finalized for February, but I'm expecting that I'll be able to give a little bit more detail then.
Great. Very good. Okay. We can move into talking about the sustainability plan. I know That was one of the things that kind of sprouted from the comprehensive plan update. Phil, I'm guessing you've been starting that effort already?
I have. I didn't get a plan finished yet, which would have been great.
Plan for a plan, at least?
Plan for a plan. What I did is I kind of conducted a high-level overview of a number of plans I was able to find out there. So I've got five sustainability plans that I found from Wisconsin municipalities, and then 4 from other cities around the country, as well as looking at the scorecard used for the Green Tier Legacy communities. And I just kind of wanted to get a sense of how are they structured, how do they organize all the different potential components of sustainability into one plan, because sustainability can be defined so narrowly or broadly, and the boundaries that you set may vary depending on what your particular mission is. I just sort of wanted to see what other cities, how they were structuring it, and sort of get a sense of the kind of scope we'd be looking at if we want to push forward with a sustainability plan. So that was the purpose of this grid here, was just kind of, I went through all of these different plans in the scorecard just to look at what were the categories that they actually used for their groupings, to see if any common themes came out, and they did. The 9 of the, I guess if we include the scorecard, we have 11 sustainability plans. We have 11 documents. 9 of those 11 used both transportation and land use and planning in some fashion as categories. 7 used energy and waste. I've got all the tallies there on the left side. Madison's 2011 plan included arts, design, and culture, where none of the others did. So there's a little bit of variance, but also I think some pretty common, not particularly surprising categories popped out. And I highlighted the 9 categories that were used most commonly. If we wanted to pursue a plan, we could certainly just follow those 9 categories, or we could say, some of these it makes sense to break out, to group together. We should add something else in that, maybe because of Fitchburg has a focus on the Healthy Neighborhoods Initiative, maybe we would have something that's a little bit more distinctly addressing that particular focus of the city, things along those lines. But this at least gives us that sense of how are other cities doing this, which I think is a valuable way to look at this, and instead of trying to just reinvent the wheel. And then the second page was a little bit different view of these, looking at what year they were created, but also how. Oh, I guess I put the number of pages was on the chart. I was about to reference that on page 2. So the header bar there on the grid has the city or county, the year it was created, and then the number of pages. That also gives us a sense of how expansive the plans were. So obviously something like Monona's was 20 pages. Doing something along those lines would take us less time, effort, investment than imitating Asheville's that was 169. And as you can see with the second page, some of that is a function of some of these plans were several iterations in. So Fort Collins had actually done an initial sustainability management plan in 2013. So in 2019, they just re-updated it, reorganized it. They have a completely different organization of city staff where they've got a sustainability services area and a number of, they don't necessarily report up to the sustainability manager, but they regularly communicate with. And so there's an interfacing of different departments like economic interests and planning that they both communicate with that sustainability person in a much more official capacity with Fort Collins than you see in a lot of other cities. So they have a lot more room for detail and a really deep dive into sustainability, where Monona does not have a full-time sustainability person. They were doing their first draft of this in 2014, working with a local nonprofit, Madison Environmental Group, and so the second page kind of gives some of that context, what the groups were that were involved in creating these, how long the process was, that type of thing.
What do you see as the next steps for you?
I think some of that depends on what the RCC wants to do. I think that as of right now, the only thing that is this is something I would really like to put together for Fitchburg, a sustainability plan of some sort. The clean energy resolution from last year called for Fitchburg to develop an energy and water plan, which would be a little bit more narrow in scope than a full sustainability plan, but that's something that council has already, through the CER in 2019, they called for an energy and water plan. So that has some degree of momentum and heft behind it. If I had come in a little bit sooner, before the comprehensive plan update was kind of already almost completed, I would have loved to have put a sustainability section specifically in there. And there are a lot of sections of the CP that address sustainability. It's, I'm really happy with how they put that in there, but I think it would have been nice to have a section that was specifically sustainability, because we're post comprehensive plan. I think that I certainly intend to chat with other city staff members about what we see as a possible timeline for doing a little bit more research into this. I think if I'm going to work on a sustainability plan by myself, we're probably looking at something that's a 2-year project, just in terms of doing all this kind of research and getting a lot of data together, figuring out what the city's doing now and what are reasonable options for the city pushing forward. But it's going to be more narrow in scope, because I'm one person with a full-time job responsibility, and this creating a plan, sustainability is my focus, but a plan itself, other things are going to come and go in terms of where I need to spend my time. So it's, the short version is I'm not entirely sure.
I'm just wondering, since the energy and water is already sanctioned, if you will,
Right.
By council, would it be possible to work on that, and that could be incorporated into that would be like a segment of a sustainability plan?
I think that could be the kind of a beginning structure to a larger sustainability plan.
Then I'm wondering, when we do the committee of the whole presentation, if we bring this idea up to council to see if we have council support for it. I would love, and we've been working for a sustainability plan, or working toward getting one for a number of years, but to just do one without council's involvement or blessing, if you will, I'm not sure that it's going to do a heck of a lot of good. But if we can get council to support it, then well, first of all, I think that when the plan is done, it will carry more weight, and hopefully people will stick to it. But secondly, perhaps more resources can be devoted to getting it done. If you're going to be talking to other staff members and getting, at least that will give it some importance. So can we add that to the committee of the whole discussion?
I think we need to kind of sell it. We have to convince ourselves that this is, the right thing, and how this tool is really going to help Fitchburg as a community, and then tell that to the council members, and then get their feedback on it. If we have a good discussion like that, we'll have a pretty good feel as if we really feel like this is something that we want to put funding towards in the future and get some support. So kind of going back a step, we had what was the woman's name? Sherry Gruder from UW Extension came in, and she taught us about this natural step process, and we had gone through a process with her where we were trying to she was going to help us develop a sustainability plan. And part of that process, which I know that we've already talked about, Phil, but is going around and collecting information from the community. So there was a lot of community listening sessions, and then I think a team of like 24 different types of community members, all coming together like 6 or 7 times to provide feedback, to give give her the basis for developing the sustainability plan. So that was where we were at, and then, you know, that cost was approximately around $20,000. And we would put that in, you know, for budget each year. And then, you know, it would often be one of the first things that would get hacked out of the budget at that time. But, you know, we didn't go in and kind of have this open dialogue, you know, with council about a sustainability plan. We've gone in and given updates. This is what we've been doing. This is what we'll be working on, and that can be part of the committee of the whole meeting. But I think also we want to have some good discussion about direction of Fitchburg in the sustainability front. Talk about what some of our commitments are, and, you know, if we're going to get there, you know, we think that a sustainability plan that everybody's kind of working off of is, you know, a key aspect to helping us get there. And then see, you know, where the council stands, you know, after we make some arguments like that, and in addition to that, and, you know, have a good open discussion about it as a community.
I think it would be helpful in advance of the meeting, perhaps Phil can provide some dialogue and, saying how explaining the benefit of having a sustainability plan, and also we should have a better idea as a committee. Are we looking for something grandiose, like Sherry Gruder was suggesting, where we interview community members and, you know, have all these meetings? Or are we looking for something just within municipal operations? The ones that you looked at, are they primarily municipal?
The ones I looked at, from what I could tell, they were primarily concerned with municipal, in that they didn't necessarily direct residents and businesses to do anything. So the plans outlined, this is the sense of the city of Asheville, of Dane County, the organizing structure of those communities. So the municipal body, the county boards are setting these policies, we're setting these targets, and to some degree you can influence then community actions, community purchases and behavior by how you set ordinances, by how you create infrastructure, things like that. So it wasn't municipal in that they were just looking to make municipal buildings green.
Right.
But municipal insofar as the city was outlining how it intended to guide the community to become more sustainable, if that makes sense.
Does that make sense to have that kind of an approach for Fitchburg's sustainability plan? That's a little different than Sherry's, but I think it's more doable. It could always be, you know, once that's done, could be expanded and involve community at that point, but we have plenty to do internally, if you will.
And that's something that could be hashed out later on as well. I think that getting community buy-in is really important, because the city leaders, the city council and staff can't do it all by themselves. There needs to be some degree of buy-in, but kind of determining how much community involvement do you have time for, do you have the funding to pursue, that kind of gets worked out as you go through the initial planning stages. I think one thing that part of the hesitation with kind of your question, what's the next step, is if you go down these cities, there are kind of several different things that sort of seems to be the impetus behind the creation of a lot of these plans. So with some, it was just they created a sustainability task force, and that task force began researching the plan, and within a few months they kind of had an outline of how they wanted to move forward. They had a plan of attack. With one, you have, you know, with Monona in 2012, they adopted a sustainability resolution, and that kind of spurred things on. It kind of, you know, Sheboygan started with a sustainability component of their comprehensive plan. So the next step is sort of fluid. We could push for, I think pushing to get some type of, if not a resolution, at least some kind of statement of support from council would be valuable. Because I've certainly, when I've talked about this internally, I've received no pushback. I don't think there's anybody who's opposed to this. It's just a question of how much time and resources are available, as you sort of already mentioned, and if we have clear direction from council that they really want to see this, as opposed to this just being kind of my pet project, sort
Right.
of, that makes a difference in how quickly we can get it started and how many of those resources will be available.
Yeah. Based on past people that have had your position, you know, the time gets pulled in a lot of different directions.
Yeah.
And so, you know, while I admire your ambition to try to take it on as a pet project, I also know that can be kind of a burden, you know, to try to get it done as well.
Sure.
And so, like, you know, if we think that there might be a path to get some outside support on it, and you can be heavily involved with it in kind of advising to it and providing input, I think that's probably a better space to get it done, you know, faster. And then also provides, you know, some different ideas and different, you know, from things that have worked in other communities. It just provides some other perspectives to the table, rather than being you having to kind of pull it all together.
It's nice to be a leader in things. It's fun
Yep.
to be the first, but also we've got 6 different communities, you know, within spitting distance of Fitchburg that have done this, and so I would absolutely want to lean on them and figure out what went well, what didn't, how they, you know, how they organized it, and those are conversations I haven't had yet.
Yeah.
I've talked with Kelly Hilliard with Middleton about some of their efforts, but I need to have a more in-depth discussion with her, with Brad over in Monona, and some other folks about how they've done it, and that would certainly make the lift easier. I know one big focus for Ellen immediately before me was getting the clean energy resolution put together, and that's not part of my responsibility, so I'm hoping that some of those kind of shifting duties will allow me to focus a little bit more on this, but we'll see.
What I'm thinking for the community of the community of the whole might be to explain how Fitchburg, well, the municipal operations of Fitchburg could benefit from a sustainability plan. Start small, and maybe go bigger. And I'm concerned that I think it would be easier or better received if we explain the benefits and kind of have an idea of what Phil's going to do next. And as he gets into it, and we can start seeing some results from it, at that point, if we decide that it would be helpful to have more resources, then ask for it, because then we have something that we can show council, this is where we are, and it would really be beneficial, rather than we've asked for money to get this done without showing any product. And I think if we do that again, if we say we'd like to have a sustainability plan, but you need to allocate $10,000 in the budget, I think we'll be right back to square one. So I think it might be better to just explain how it would benefit, get you going at least on the part that they've already agreed to, and hopefully they'll buy in the expansion, and then as you need, then we'll work on additional support. Does that sound reasonable?
Yeah, no, I definitely like the idea that it's an ever-living plan. It doesn't have to be a set structure or due date. I mean, I like that part of it.
Yeah. And I think I think that's a really good point, that going with a little bit more of a clear outline. So there are communities that put together a sustainability plan. I've seen some clean energy plans. I've seen community net zero carbon plans. I've seen resiliency plans. There's a lot of different nomenclatures, and some of it is just semantics, but some of it is a different focus, that maybe we're really focusing on our natural resources. Maybe we're really focusing on reducing our energy and carbon and water footprint. And I think if we just kind of get a broad initial kind of that tentative buy-in with the spirit of the plan, and then I'm able to spend a little bit more time fleshing out some details on what an outline would look like. Here are the specific areas that it actually seems like this fits with Fitchburg's mission, with Fitchburg's plan, you know, already laid out in the comprehensive plan and ordinances in various other ways. You know, I think that would be nice to be able to tie those together really closely and say, this is specifically the areas we want to focus on. Here's where we actually think it could benefit, and it benefit the city, and it's not just a symbolic flag that we're going to wave.
Yep.
Although those can be nice, but Yeah, I think that's a good point.
I think it would be helpful to clearly state how it does differ from the comprehensive plan, just because I know within the comprehensive plan, they really did try to highlight energy, resources, land use. So I think a lot of these that you've highlighted using other counties, I think they tried to address within the comprehensive plan. So I think it'd be beneficial to call out exactly as to how this plan would differ and provide value. And I also would potentially call out, I love the research that you've done from contacting other communities, and I think that's really helpful. But I would be very interested to hear kind of as to how they have used their plan, just because when one of the things that does first pop out to me is just that Middleton not having updated theirs since 2010. Are they updating these? Are they finding value to, because I do think that resources are ever changing, and there's value in having them up to date. That seeing some of these documents 10 years, 9 years old, I'd love to hear their perspective and the value and how they're using them.
Yeah, for sure. And then I think with some of those, you maybe see a difference between where, and I don't want to speak to any of the specific plans here, but I think what you can definitely see is kind of sort of a difference between this is a plan that lays out a mission statement for the city versus this is a plan that's laying out specific goals, and we're actually going to track and benchmark our progress against those goals. And we'd absolutely have to know which of those are we going for and why, and is it feasible to, if we're planning for this to be an ongoing thing, can we keep up with that? Is it going to fall apart in 3 years and we say, oh, that was really nice when we set goals? We absolutely have to know that we can track the data and that we can keep up.
I don't think that we're interested in a mission statement, correct? I mean, we've been there, right? I don't think we're interested in something symbolic. I think we want an action plan. This is how we're going to this is what we need to do to get to wherever we want to be.
Yeah, personally, I agree.
Okay.
We just have to make sure that we can make that happen.
Well, nice job pulling everything together. This is really good work that you've done out of the gates to try to spring this forward. So I think that you're doing good things, and you're being a driving force in the sustainability plan arena. And I think that we'll try to pull it in strategically into our committee of the whole meeting coming up at the end of February.
Yeah, just as you're preparing for that, let me know if I can add anything else. I mean, probably not something that's going to be particularly detailed at that meeting, but for sure, let me know if I can add anything.
I'm sure we'll reach out, but yeah, I think the community of the whole should be a good opportunity to at least get it in front of their eyes.
Okay.
Would it be, do you think it might be helpful for Phil to be there?
Yes. If
Great.
he's willing to.
Which date is that?
It's on a Wednesday.
Wednesday, the 26th of February.
Okay. Definitely open right now, so I'll at least
Do you know
pencil it into the calendar.
Do you know our time slot?
I think it was 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock.
Yeah, I couldn't put money on
I did look at it within the last week. I thought it was 7 to 8. But we should confirm that.
it. Yeah, we'll confirm that, and Phil will have some back and forth for sure. At a minimum, just to get content down, and then if you could be there, that'd be great.
I think specifically to talk about this piece, and then I think we would, compliment you. But if you can kind of lay out some of this stuff, I think even some of this research from the cities, and if you can do a little follow-up that Sarah talked about, I think that's really good stuff to see how other communities are using these plans and how they've helped them. That kind of, will tell council, like, oh, this is a worthwhile venture, or this is just a plan that's going to sit on the shelf. We don't want it to be that.
We don't want that.
We're pretty much on time.
Great. Perfect. Any other comments so far? Great. Agenda item 4C, we have the Spring Recycling Day event that Claudia has already sent out a date and has asked for volunteers. I think in the staff update, we have a roster so far. Claudia, you want to
Sure, so
about
the Recycling Day event is currently scheduled for Saturday, April 18 from 8 a.m. to 11 a.m. I was thinking we would just do the same setup that we've had in the past. We have reached out to Pelletary and Resource Solutions. They are on board and signed up for that date. We've also reached out to the police to ask them to be there to staff MedDrop. We reached out to Badger Prairie Needs Network, but we let them know that if we're going to have them at this event, we want to make sure that they actually staff their stand, because the last time we had it, they just came at the beginning and put down a cart or a basket, and nobody found it, and it was totally empty by the end. So that seemed like a little bit of a waste of everyone's time, and they said that they're struggling with volunteers, so they're not planning on attending. So that's where we are in terms of getting everyone lined up. And then this is what I have so far in terms of volunteers. Phil and Dakota are both going to be there, so setup and cleanup are taken care of. And it looks like Nate and Shelley have already gotten back to me. And if anyone else is available on this date, that would be very much appreciated.
Claudia, I can do the early morning shift.
Okay.
I can too.
Okay,
I think I can do all day, well, all morning.
perfect.
I can do the late morning shift. There you go. Done.
There we go.
Perfect. Thank you. That was easy.
I think one thing we need to figure out is the topic of batteries, if they're going to be open to being recycled, or if we need to pay to have it open, or clearly
Yes.
clearly show what is
Thank
going
you
to
for
happen.
the reminder, because we did put that into the operating budget
Okay.
for this, so I will take that as a follow-up.
Great.
We'll add that to our outreach to make sure folks know up until a certain amount, battery recycling will be free,
Yep.
whatever's budgeted, and then after that, folks can pay. So,
The electronics folks took batteries last time.
but there was a cost associated with that.
No, because I gave them, I had some batteries, and I said, are you accepting these?
I think some of them were free, but some of
Yeah.
them weren't. Some of them you had to pay for. I can double check that, but
Yeah,
I'm
because
pretty
when I
sure there
was
was a
up here,
cost.
people were asking, are you accepting batteries? And I thought we were not. And then I found out that they were accepting batteries.
yeah.
Yeah.
It wasn't, I don't think it was on their list in the past, but they do accept batteries, yeah.
Okay. So,
Did they just put them in trash though? But I thought the majority of batteries, as long as they're not rechargeable or lithium, aren't they just?
So the alkaline ones, the DNR says go ahead and put those in the trash.
Yeah.
I can double check what Resource Solutions does with them. I haven't asked that question specifically to them. I would hope they're not putting them straight in the trash.
That's the only reason why I would wonder if they
Yeah.
accepted some and not others. But,
I'll ask, I'll follow up on that.
Yeah, I just know that that's been uneasy, because I think it hasn't been showing up, at least on the flyer and the things that we've sent out. So,
somebody saw it on something.
do they?
Yeah,
Okay.
because enough people asked about it.
Okay.
I don't know, I didn't see the flyer until after the event was over, which was my fault. I guess there were some up here, but I didn't realize that. But yeah, it was, somebody saw it somewhere.
Okay.
Yeah, if there's a way that they could share their flyer with us, that they do their direct mailing.
Oh.
And
They
if we,
do, they do. I talked to Dakota about that. He sees a draft of it, he approves
Oh.
it before it goes back to them. And
okay.
so, and then he gets apparently the final one, and I just suggested that be circulated to all of us
Yeah,
before the day of the event, because I don't have time to read it when I'm out there directing
yeah.
people. And it'd be helpful to know in advance before we get here. So if you can just arrange to have that circulated,
Yes, I can do that.
that would be good.
The other thing that the last time, which was really helpful, is Dakota did come over and give me a little flyer so that when I was up directing with the cars coming in and people were asking me, no, it was the flyer of what was being accepted.
He gave me the same thing.
And what prices too.
It was so helpful because people were asking me questions like, well, will they take, this, or will they take that? And if it wasn't something that was, on the list, I wasn't sure, but by having that flyer, I could refer to it and say yes, or it's gonna cost something, for this.
Yes.
So I think that would be really helpful for anyone who's up there directing traffic to have
Yeah,
that
and
flyer.
I think it's wise for us to all to just kind of
Yeah.
read that over before, because, inevitably there's, I remember having a gentleman come up to me, indicating that a tube TV had to pay $20 for it, and that his alder was gonna hear about it. Those types of things, it was on all the stuff that I saw. Like, I looked back after that at all the different things that went out, and there was clearly a price for the TV that he was describing on all of those things, but he didn't see that. We'll just try to avoid emails to alders for unnecessary reasons.
Good idea.
One other thing, they had, the electronics folks had enough staff there that they didn't need any of our support. So let's not overstaff this event. We need a couple people directing, and Nancy is nice enough to do the med drop all day long, and we need at least one person at the shredding event, but
And
let's not
Pelletary
overdo it.
requested 2 folks to help with shredding. And then I agree, maybe one person directing traffic there, med drop, and then I think it actually was helpful when you were over here directing traffic too. Because I remember
I think we're pretty close on the signs. Like, Dakota's gotten it better and better every time, but I mean, even if Kim says, you gotta turn right there and come around, like, people will get into some type of trance with this.
They just drive right past. When I say, show them, like, right here, and then they just go, boom.
Yeah, so I guess there's only so much you can do.
So, I mean, I think we'll do a couple more things with signs. We had a couple of ideas to just make some final improvements to it, but there's people that come in to exit, even though it says exit to recycling event in large letters, but I think people are coming and they're kind of nervous and there's a lot going on and they're trying to figure out where different things, where they need to go, and they just kind of lose a little bit of sense of, I don't know what I would call it, they just kind of.
Well, plus that was only the second time that we've flipped things around, so it'll each time will be better.
Yeah, I agree.
Spring's generally more busy too, right?
With electronic, I guess with paper, usually with paper, I guess.
Well, last year was busy with paper, the year before was busy with electronics, so, I mean, it's hard to tell, like, I think, it was an anomaly last year with the paper. I don't know what was going on with people and their paper last year, but I think in general it's gonna be electronics that are gonna rule.
And I am trying to make sure that we say that it's confidential paper shredding. It's not just paper shredding, because you can just put paper in your cart, and there's no reason why you couldn't do that.
I think somebody brought like stacks of old newspapers.
I've seen stacks of old magazines, and it's like, well, that probably doesn't need to be shredded.
Pelletary doesn't mind doing it. The shred unit is separate from the disposal unit. They don't mind doing that, but there's no reason for people to sit in line and wait to shred something that's not confidential.
Right, and then if it backs up, it's frustrating for other people who have to wait.
Maybe in the announcement that's on the web and in the Star,
Confidential.
you can just put, if it's not confidential, give them information on how they can recycle it. I almost said dispose of it. At least I didn't say throw it.
Yes.
Well, good. Yeah, there's definitely a lot of moving parts with these events, and staffing is now addressed, which is good. But a couple more meetings before then to kind of square everything away. But I think it should be another good event. I know we've had success pretty much every time, so it's good. I think the hardest part of this next agenda item, the Waterway Cleanup, is that it's yet another April event that we have to figure out when's the best time I don't think we have a date scheduled yet. I think,
Maybe the hardest thing is that was supposed to be discussed at the same time as the recycling day event.
If it was at 7:05,
Yeah.
that's really in a tough situation.
That's really gonna mess you up, Chris.
Yeah.
I think we should pick a day that's gonna be warm and sunny.
Yeah, let's
Can we
do.
do that?
Well, it's a challenge to pick that day, because
If
even
you-
in mid-May, it can be, cold and snowy.
If you get into May, then
Mhm.
we get into mosquito season, and I've done it in May, and it's been just miserable.
Or
So-
growth as well, in terms of
Oh,
weed
yeah,
growth.
it's, yeah.
Yeah.
So
Trying
I
to get
prefer
into
to
the
do it
light.
before any of the grass needs to get,
Yeah.
so, April 25th is Crazy Legs. Not that that has to sway people away from that day, but obviously April 18th doesn't work for us because we already have an event. So the warmest of the 2 days I would bet on between April 4th and April 11th would be April 11th.
It's
But it's
Eas-
no
it's-
guarantee.
It's Easter weekend.
That's also Easter, yeah, I think there was something that
Yeah.
weekend.
Good Friday on the 10th.
So, I mean,
So
we
we
could.
could do May 2nd or April 4th?
I would go for April 4th. I mean, sometimes there's still ice on water, but nothing has really grown yet, and it's easier to access the waste.
When was it
That's
last year?
gonna be spring break.
What was the date last year? Remember?
I don't know, but we did April 1st a couple of years ago, and a lot of people said that wasn't gonna work, and it
April
was a
6th
best
last
day
year.
in April, I think.
That's
Really?
that's the week of Madison spring break, so I will not be.
Is that when it ends or when it starts?
It's the week, it starts on the 30th, and so it would go through that. I mean, if you're out of town, it's gonna go through that weekend, probably.
Well, and we've also done multiple weekends,
Mhm.
for those
Yep.
that can't do it on one particular weekend, do it on another, but,
When was the Swan Creek one? It was after the 4th. Last year, this
Yeah.
event was the 6th last year. Just curious when the Swan Creek one was. Do you remember?
I don't remember off the top of my head. I mean, I think it was
I thought it was a couple weekends after that.
actually, the best weekend would have been the 18th.
Yeah.
Swan Creek is
And that's when we've typically done it,
Yeah.
but we've already got this other event set up.
Mhm. April 20th.
Mhm.
So, yeah, you're right, that was a good weekend to do it. So,
What's wrong with the 25th? Is it?
we can do it, I mean, I'm gonna be running in Crazy Lake, so I'm not gonna do Swan Creek that day. But
I'll be
Swan
gone,
Creek's is
too.
the 25th?
I won't be doing it that
No,
day
it
because
is.
I'm running in
That's,
Crazy Lake.
it's Crazy Legs.
I know, you said Crazy Legs, but you said Swan Creek. You said,
Because he usually leads
I
Swan
said,
Creek.
I normally lead the Swan Creek one,
right, so we're not gonna have it on the 25th.
unless you wanna lead it.
I'm definitely there to help. I've only done one, so I,
Do we want to compete with Crazy Legs?
Crazy Legs isn't the event it used to be. I mean, it used to be 30,000 people, now it's like closer to 10 to 15, so,
Okay.
the numbers have come, way down on that, and, it's a weekend in April still, so it seems better than Easter weekend. So, I think we could potentially do it that weekend. I might just have to switch.
But it sounds like both of you aren't free, but you're both free on the 4th, so why don't we pick on the 4th? And then maybe Kim can do a different day. I think that worked out really well last year, having different days for different communities.
Okay.
Yeah,
That was-
last year, April 6th and April 20th. And then the shred event was April 13th, so it was just.
yeah.
I think the April 4th probably works the best for me, even though I'm coming back off of spring break that day before, I think.
Or someone else can run mine. It's usually myself, my son, and Sarah, and Zach.
Yeah.
So
And we could, the two of us could pick up trash, yeah.
Well, and also, since it is Madison Spring Break, we'll probably, that will probably affect the number of people that
That's-
Yeah.
come to help.
that's
Yeah.
But if we offer multiple days, I mean, maybe the 4th, and, if you guys are available, the 25th. Next year, maybe we can shoot for like around the 16th or 17th and do the e-cycle a different weekend.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It maybe doesn't make a difference, but is the 4th the end of UW spring break, or is it
It's
right?
Mad-
It's
Madison.
it's Madison,
Oh,
so
it's Madison schools,
Yeah,
okay.
Madison
But is
Public
it
Schools.
like
the end.
the week, okay,
So they're
spring,
on the 30th.
spring break goes through the 3rd, essentially Sunday
Yeah,
5th.
so people
Got it.
leave like the weekend before, and
Yeah.
then they're coming back that weekend,
Got it.
the following week, or that weekend, so.
Yeah, I
we'll
mean, that
be-
could definitely, I gotta think about that a little bit.
Yeah.
Which day is better to do?
Yeah.
Well, we can also coordinate via
Yeah.
email, so I'll
Yeah.
just send out an email saying who wants to lead a group, what day do you want to lead it,
Yeah.
and then once we have all of that information, then I'll send that out in a separate email for who wants to volunteer to also help with these ones that are already set up.
We can revisit this in February.
Yeah,
That's
it's only
true.
like 18 days
That's
away,
true.
so I think, yeah, we can think about it. I mean, we could do some email and then, we could develop it a little bit further in terms of the next steps will be marketing, putting together the map, so
Yeah.
I think we should probably be talking more about that, like February meeting and then final plans in March.
Sounds like a plan. I know we took a lot of good pictures last year that will be shown in the community of the whole presentation. So
And the star.
just,
And what?
And the star. I remember I forgot to do that last year, so
Oh.
I will do that this year.
It was nice last year too, that Fact TV came and kind of.
Yeah, they
Had a lot-
followed us.
Yeah, they did a lot of public, like,
Went around
Could-
to the different sites.
could we ask them to kind of get some
Yeah, definitely.
promotion beforehand too, to have people sign up?
Oh, okay.
But
That's
that-
what I did.
Yeah, see what they have left from last year.
very
Once
good.
we have the date selected, in the past, the person in your position, Claudia, has notified the neighborhood associations for the areas that we're working in, so they
Mhm.
can get the word out, which has increased volunteers.
I'm still, I think in the past, there was a person who was in charge of keeping a list of who the contact is for different neighborhood associations up to date.
Oh, it's not up to date
But-
anymore?
I don't know who does that. I thought it was in planning, but I don't know.
It might be the.
I'll figure it out. Sorry, I don't mean to look at you. It's
It might be
probably
an
not
admin-
you.
It might be an administration.
It could be. I will follow up on that. I will take that as a follow-up. But I am almost 100% certain that it's not up to date. I'm not sure who's supposed to be doing it, but.
Yeah, I know I actually looked into neighborhood associations for my neighborhood, which we don't have one, and so I emailed planning, I think, and Sonia said, well, this is outside of the city's work. Neighborhood associations aren't associated with the city.
Huh.
So I think
Okay.
it's just kind of no one.
Well, they've sent notices to neighborhood associations before.
Have they?
Yeah.
That's just what I heard is
Because
neighborhood associations aren't associated with the city.
planning tries to notify neighborhood associations if it's 300 feet of a development. So they have to have some sort of list. Maybe it isn't in planning if it is some sort of
So,
administrative.
well, when I've worked on projects, it's the same thing. You try to
Mhm.
notify
Notify.
people within
Yeah.
300 feet, but you send them a direct mailing to their address, and you just
Oh,
like
not
pull
through
the
HOA.
addresses. Yep.
Well, Claudia, if you can't find anything, contact me. I may have a source to be able to get you some homeowner association information.
Okay. Oh, okay.
She knows people who know people.
Okay. Yeah, it's the
I
realtor.
can't tell you that. That realtor thing.
Yeah, we'll consider that part of our marketing and we'll cover,
Yeah.
kind of what your findings are at the next meeting, but we better keep moving since we had 2 items at 7:05. We're 10 minutes behind now.
Okay, moving on. Item 4E, Rain Garden Workshop at the Senior Center. Claudia, you want to give a nice summary of that? It looks like a pretty exciting event.
Yes. Oh, and it looks like I didn't put it in here. I apologize. It is not here, so I have to check my calendar.
Is that right?
Oh, sorry, but can we go back real quick? Because the other thing was gifts for the Waterway Cleanup event.
Sure.
This is something that we got.
Nice.
We don't have enough to give to everyone at the Waterway Cleanup event, but I was going to propose doing something similar to this.
Those are nice.
we'll give out the ones that we already have and then maybe make some more that say Resource Conservation Commission instead of Wisconsin. Unless anyone had another idea.
A couple of thoughts on that, and I appreciate you coming up with that idea, Claudia. Well, first of all, those are made of plastic. And that was a negative consideration when we did the decorating for the Boys and Girls Club bags. We purposely got cotton. Secondly, I'm wondering how many people still need more reusable bags. We had, Rick ordered some bags that were cotton bags several years ago, and he thought they were that size, and they came up like this size.
Oh, no.
But very few people, and CETA had some extra Fitchburg bags, not those, but the blue ones. And at least in the groups that I was leading, people were not taking thank you gifts. We had that, and we had bandanas, and they said, I'm fine. And if you give them something, they either carry it around or you have to be there when they leave and give it to them, so it becomes sort of a hindrance. We've done T-shirts in the past, and then trying to get the right sizes, and also the delivery, and how do you coordinate who gets what.
Sure.
And I'm just wondering what you think about just thanking people and not giving them anything.
People don't need more stuff.
I agree. Yeah. I mean, we supply the gloves, the vests.
And the gloves they
Which-
can keep,
Yeah, I think that's great.
but they can't
If you
keep the
want to do,
vests.
No,
I mean,
not the
if you want to
vests.
do something to show appreciation, I mean, like, people, like I've gone and just bought like a Kringle or some donuts or something, like sprinkle donuts for some of the kids in our neighborhood. So I've just personally gone and
Oh, those are for the kids?
and Shelley. But I mean,
Is that
that's just like,
before
when everybody's gathering and you're having your initial discussion and you're talking to the kids about why we're doing it today, like, that's been an easy way because everybody disperses after that, and I don't really ever see anybody after we disperse. So the thank you gifts are kind of a challenge and an added hindrance,
I like
even
the
though
idea
I mean, I
of
think they're
food.
nice.
I like the idea of food rather than a
Yeah.
thing that
Yeah.
you take home and not necessarily use.
So maybe bagels or donuts or something?
Yeah.
I like that, and then you can just give me receipts and I'll actually get them. Submit that to
Okay.
finance.
All right.
Does
I
that
think we
sound
can-
right? But I really appreciate you doing that
Yeah.
digging, and maybe we can save
Find
those for
another-
another, like one
yeah.
of our,
Events here that could be a giveaway.
it could be a door
Oh, yeah.
prize.
Or a door
Yeah.
prize.
Right.
Okay. Well, I'll hold on to them.
Yeah,
Good.
well, yeah, that sounds good. Thanks for bringing that up, though, and looking into the costs. I think that's good research to have. And a good example. It's a short bag.
All
All right, we got.
right. Are you able to talk about 4E?
I am, yes. I just
Okay.
have to remind myself what the date is.
It's the 29th.
Thank you. So on the 29th, we are having the rain garden workshop in the Fitchburg room here at the community center. The city of Fitchburg is part of a partnership called MAMSWAP, which is the Madison Area Metropolitan Stormwater Association. It's a group of communities that work together for public outreach, and in the past, they have had rain garden workshops kind of on the east side in the Madison area. And I know that's something we've talked about in this group, that we're interested in getting that information to our community as well. And so I reached out to the MAMSWAP coordinator just to ask her, how do you feel about rotating this great resource through different communities instead of always having it in the same location? And she was very open to the idea. So this year she's bringing it to Fitchburg, and we're trying to get the word out. It's $10 to sign up, and there's a cap of 40 people who we can have. Last time I checked in with her, we had about 10 people already signed up, so that was great news. And we're still working on getting the news out.
Are you going to have something in the February issue of the Star about this?
Yes.
Because this is hand in hand with, Nate, your,
The Green Thursday
yeah.
attempt? Yeah. Yeah.
So if we can somehow push this, I was even thinking it'd be nice to subsidize it, but since people have already signed up, it's a little bit late to do that, but to encourage people to go.
Yeah, and I think I did ask specifically why there was a cost associated with it, because I know the room is free, and I wasn't sure if the speaker was getting compensated. And she said that there are a couple of reasons. One is to help with the cost of food, because they usually have some food available. But the other reason is just to reduce the number of no-shows, because that's a problem they've had in the past. People sign up, there are limited slots, and then people don't attend. So the feeling is that if people pay a nominal amount, then they'll actually come. And then the other thing is they want folks to show up with some idea of how big their roof is, and an idea of how water drains on their lot, so that they are a little bit more prepared than just showing up. And the feeling is that by having a little bit of a fee associated with it, folks will do a little bit more prep work and come more prepared. So that was
makes sense. I mean, a lot of the sustained day networking events, they charge like $15 for like a 2-hour session, and they've been getting like 150 people at their morning events.
Okay.
So I mean, and it's a small fee, but like I think it, you know, it helps to kind of keep people, you know, engaged to their commitment.
Yes.
We pay, we're going.
What?
We pay, we're going.
Yeah.
So RCC can help by maybe marketing for this event then, or is there anything else?
So I should be taking care of marketing. I'm going down that list of how we market that.
Sure.
If you want to share it on your personal Facebook pages or any other places where you can post it, that would be great.
Awesome.
Claudia, do you have some information on that you could send out?
I
Or did
do.
you?
And I thought I already sent it to the RCC.
I think you did.
Okay.
I think you sent
You
the
may
flyer
have.
to us.
Okay.
Okay,
Place a link.
but I can resend it. That should be no
Okay.
problem.
Yeah, there's a link to that on January 14th that helps find the email.
Thank you. Yeah, because I can get it up on our neighborhood
Okay.
page too.
And you're limited to 40?
That's the capacity of the
It
room.
would be great if you could get 40.
It would be. She said that's the max that they've had in the past is 40.
And they'll be doing their own marketing too for it, this group?
Yes, they
Okay.
will as well.
Good.
Mhm.
Well, it's a month away and you already have 10 people signed up, so that's very encouraging.
Yes,
Mhm.
I think so too.
Good stuff.
Cool. Okay, we can move on to the next item, another 10-minute item. Discuss modifying Fitchburg's recycling facilities. This has kind of been somewhat an ongoing discussion, but maybe we can break way into some newer ideas. I think, Diane, you asked me to.
Well,
do
this was a continuation from November because Claudia missed our November meeting and we talked about our Middleton recycling tour and the possibility and just to bring you all back to the meeting of the minds. One of the motivations for the tour was the fact that Fitchburg collects much more polystyrene than Middleton does. And Middleton has a staffed site and they're doing other things there. So Nate and Claudia and I toured their facility and came back with some ideas, but also some numbers. And I just did a very conservative calculation with the information that I had available. The fellow who gave us the tour at Middleton told us, well, Pelletieri provides them with boxes and bags, and when they, I don't know if you can all see this picture, but as they get polystyrene, it goes into these boxes, and when the bag is full, they store the bag on site until they get about 10 to 12 bags, and then they call Pelletieri, and Pelletieri picks up the bags. And he told us that Pelletieri picks up 6 to 7 times a year. And based on the size of these boxes, I'm thinking that 10 to 12 probably is the equivalent of 2 dumpsters. So they probably have about 12 dumpsters a year versus Fitchburg, we have 2 dumpsters a week. So there's a significant difference. And my thinking is if we could use some of Fitchburg's underutilized buildings, maybe we could do a staffed collection as well. Also, just as a reminder, Middleton's is only staffed, I think it's 4 hours on a Saturday morning. Let me look at this. And then, 4 hours every Saturday year round, except major holidays, and 1.5 hours on Wednesday from May through September. So we're not talking about a great deal of staff time. Anyway, so at the last meeting, we didn't have the information. Claudia was doing some checking with the city to see what was available. And one of the things that Claudia and I threw out was, what about the old fire station on Lacey Road? Because that's already got the bays, that you could, in Middleton, you drive in, drop your stuff off and drive out. We don't necessarily need to drive in, but that fire station isn't used as a fire station anymore, and it's got a lot of space.
On Lacey?
Yeah,
I think they just sold that building, didn't they?
no.
They are using it for different space though, where it's for the kids first and then for the emergency preparedness, that was the news article that just went out, is that it's going to be the emergency preparedness station.
Yeah, the county bought it.
Correct, yeah.
Yeah.
No. I thought the county bought the one on the other side of Verona Road.
That's Lacey.
Oh, they bought the one on Lacey?
Yeah.
I don't know if they bought it or worked out an arrangement.
Well, it doesn't matter because it doesn't sound, Claudia did, I think, a very nice job researching this and talking this over with the Director of Public Works, and it doesn't sound like there's much interest on the city's side to do this.
Well, there isn't staff capacity or a location. So if we fixed those two things, then I don't think staff would be opposed to it, but we definitely need more funding and more space than we currently have. So that's kind of the roadblock.
On the staffing side, we would save roughly, at least, based on my conservative numbers, $12,000, $13,000 a year if we reduced hours and collected what Middleton does. And I don't have any reason to believe that Fitchburg generates more polystyrene than Middleton. So that would save $13,000 a year, and we're staffing it 4 hours a day, 4 hours a week. This could be a part-time person with essentially no benefits or something like that. But, well, at least according to Claudia's research, the Lacey Road Fire Station is being used as the emergency response headquarters, a polling location, and as Sarah mentioned, Safe Kids. I don't know how much of the fire station is used that way. We're not talking about a great deal of space to store polystyrene, but the space is a problem. Claudia and I also talked about the salt shed, which is where we've done a waste sort in the past. I don't know if any of you have helped with that, but it's down by the old city hall. But apparently that's being used for salt, and they're planning on possibly building another building for salt. And the Parks Department, let's see, the building there's another building down there that the Parks Department is used for equipment storage and other materials. So I think if the city, I guess maybe my frustration is coming out, but it seems like if the city wanted to do this, it could be done. It's just that it's just not wanted to do. So I guess that's the end of the conversation. We'll just continue paying to have that dumpster hauled away. Let's see, we're paying $140 a week to have the two dumpsters, the dumpster empty twice a week. So.
What else would be collected there besides polystyrene?
Well, it depends on how much space is available. There in Middleton, they collect some things that actually generate funds. Like, let me make sure I've got the right brand here. Solo cups, Tom's, and I don't know what Tom's, I can't remember what Tom's
Tom's
is.
or shoes.
Pardon me?
The shoes or the toothpaste?
Must be toothpaste.
Oh.
And Colgate toothpaste, tubes and cartons. And they, PUR, Brita water filters, and Capri Sun pouches. Those are all collected. There's no shipping cost, and Middleton receives payment for those, and actually Middleton donates the money that they receive to their youth program. That takes up very little space. They also collect eyeglasses, which, we collect already here, so I think that would be duplication. They collect plastic bags. Again, we've already got that base covered. They collect things for Goodwill, and, they don't have a Goodwill that's convenient to Middleton, so I don't see that we would want to do that here. But depending on, let's see, they collect electronics, and they basically charge for the same thing that's like we're charging now on our twice a year collection. And they have that, let's see, let me just refresh my memory on this. File 13 picks up every Saturday just before they close, so they're not storing the electronics there. And they collect durable medical supplies. Those are shipped there in Middleton. It's shipped to a local doctor ships the items to Cuba, but there are at least 2 organizations in Madison that collect durable medical supplies. So if we did collect those, that we could just arrange for them to pick it up. Neither of the organizations that I'm aware of is a convenient place for Fitchburg to drop off durable medical supplies. Let's see what else. So, in answer to your question, possible we could do electronics depending on the amount of space. We could do those items like the Colgate toothpaste tubes, Tom's, PUR, Brita, Capri Sun pouches, durable medical supplies. They also have holiday lights. That's where they collect them versus where we do it. They collect inside, they collect cardboard, metal, and free cycle. I don't know that we'd want to get into the free cycle part, but they offer almost like an exchange. If you have somebody for example, they had, 5 lawnmowers there, and if people don't take the lawnmowers, they have somebody that will come in and take them and use them for parts. So it's kind of an exchange thing, but their building, I would say half of their building is used for this sort of a recycle reuse facility, and the other half was used for storage, and it was built specifically for that. So you drive in, like you drive in this door and you go out that window, and it's self-serve. You get out of your vehicle and drop things in the boxes and take off. It's a nice operation, but I don't see Fitchburg building a building just to do this.
No.
But if we could save money on polystyrene, ideally it would be somewhere down where we have the drop-off, which would be perfect, like if that salt shed, Gesundheit, was available, but it isn't. I don't know, there has to be a solution to collecting polystyrene from all the local areas.
I still like the idea. I think, I wouldn't completely beg it. I think we should just, continue to try to explore that one a little bit.
And where would what other avenue would you explore?
Well, who's shot it down so far?
Well, you do have other avenues that we could?
Well, I guess in my mind, the way that this would work is RCC would bring this to Common Council and see if there's support for funding this operation and buying land and building a building and then getting a staff person. I think that's...
See, I don't see that happening. That's not just for this. That's why I thought if there's a little space, I haven't been to the Lacey Road Fire Station.
I think if we truly understood what was going on in there, and if we thought that there really was space that could be used, then I think we could bring it back up and make it, the financial case for getting a part-time staff person to save us overall. I mean, our funds have gone way up as a community, so then maybe, but I don't think that we have a really great handle on how that space is being used and if this could be a viable option. If there's no way that this can be a viable option with our existing buildings, then, then we might need to beg it, but I think we could explore that one a little bit more.
Yeah, and I personally haven't walked through that building that you're talking about. Well, we went together through the Public Works Maintenance Building, so I could show you that one is totally full, and I'm in there all the time, and I know that one's full.
Yeah.
The other one, I just had conversations with parks staff to get an idea of what that one's used for, and they told me they're using it for storage of materials that they don't want in the sun because that degrades them, and they rust and all of that. I can take a look personally and maybe take some pictures and bring that back to
I'd
the
be
group.
happy to go around with you if you want. Maybe we could check out the parks
Yeah.
and
The
Lacey Road.
thing that I'm a little bit wary of is what if the day that we go, like, they don't have as much, because if you go into, that public works maintenance facility and all the plow trucks are out plowing the streets, you might think, oh, look, there's this whole space that's not being used, so I would be a little wary that we go and maybe they just don't have their mulch pile that they normally have there, so.
That would be part of the evaluation, would be
Right.
just to ask those types of questions and just.
But I can reach out to you, set up a time, we can go reach out to Joran. I'd be happy to include you in that conversation.
Could we kind of continue to investigate how we could change our current setup too? Like, I remember you had proposed having the sign to state just Fitchburg residents, and I think that spurred a conversation of potentially having it be staffed, but understanding that takes time. But I mean, could we revamp the way we currently do it to discourage or ensure that they are Fitchburg residents? Just, I don't know, but just researching other communities that I don't think the building seems feasible, but if we could reuse what we currently have to somehow be more manned or clearer to have it just be for Fitchburg residents, would that be an option?
Well, we'd have to gate it, and even if you gate it, people would be able to get in.
But even if you put one barricade, I think that could still at least send a message of, I don't know.
How about
It's not as easy.
How about put a fake camera up and say you're on camera?
Actually, we have a camera there now, and it's not fake. But
Yeah, no, but more, just
But-
more, and then put it on a sign and
Yeah, the signage.
tell people, and
I just,
you're on camera, it's only Fitchburg residents.
Well, right now, the camera is used for illegal dumping. And the last time, which has been a while, that I saw the municipal court deal with that, they usually give everybody that gets a fine, give them a pass. So that doesn't really discourage anything. We
I
don't
was just
use
saying,
it.
just when you put up a new sign, if you put you're on camera, these are only Fitchburg residents, that might discourage people for the next time that they would.
It could. We don't have any way of knowing whether they're a Fitchburg resident. I mean, we can tell illegal dumping because they're dumping something they shouldn't be dumping. But, if they've got a Wisconsin license plate, we're not gonna know if they're a Fitchburg resident unless we go to.
I'm not saying that we actually look at them, I'm just saying this is just to discourage people.
Yeah, and we actually do.
Because I would be less likely to go there if I wasn't a Fitchburg resident, if I knew it was only for Fitchburg residents.
We had a fake camera up there when I first joined RCC.
Yeah.
If you don't get caught, pretty soon, nobody cares that there's a fake camera because nothing's happening. And it's
You
probably,
can put like those pictures, have you seen this person? Like they do in the
yeah.
gas stations? Just
We
kidding.
don't need to do
We're
it.
word off.
We're 20 minutes behind. We're getting into the weeds a little bit.
Yeah. I think we can keep this discussion going. I think we've made some plans to follow up with maybe a tour of some facilities. But yeah, I think it's something we can definitely keep on going with. But in the essence of time, let's move on to 4G. Sustainability grants and alternate funding options. I know a big task for the sustainability specialist has been obtaining and finding grants, and so I think Phil has done a great start to that so far. You want to give a quick summary?
Well, I haven't written for any yet, so the OEI grant is coming to a close as referenced earlier. Right now, that's the only active item. So there are some transportation-related grants that came to a close in December. I just didn't see those, wasn't ready to apply for them before the timeline closed. I believe Bill Balke put in for a multimodal transportation grant for some upcoming projects over on Fitchburg Road, but I'm not sure the status on that. So at this point, I'm just keeping abreast of any new grant opportunities that come up. I'm on a few mailing lists that do give notice when new grants have come out. And then both the Green Tier Legacy Communities Group and Sustainability Leaders Collaborative working groups have discussed recently interest in sharing grant opportunities as they arise. So I'm hoping that through those groups I'll hear about more in the short term.
Are the grants that Fitchburg has applied for in the past typically, perpetual, or they occur every year, or is it more some come up more often or not as often? Does anyone know?
I think the ones that I'm more familiar with, I think, have been more one-off type grants, but I'm not sure if there's any kind of a pattern.
Okay.
Yeah, I guess if there was just like some type of list of the potential options that might be out there that you could kind of check in with and start to, make sure somebody's routinely checking on those to make sure we're not missing potential opportunities.
Anytime I learn about grants, I've got a file I'm beginning to put together that has just a list of grants, the granting organization, what the date is, what the qualifications are for applying, all that kind of information, categorizing it into stormwater versus waste versus natural resources, energy, those kinds of things. So one example is one came across in an email a couple weeks ago that U.S. Green Building Council has a grant open for LEED for cities and communities. So one of the new categories of LEED certification that's come out in the last couple of years is cities. And anybody who is planning to apply for that certification this year can apply for this grant, and they get just some financial assistance with completing the work that's required to do that. Now we're not at a point right now where we're prepared to submit an application for being a LEED city by the end of March or end of April or whatever the deadline is there that you'd have to apply. But at least that that type of thing I'm now putting into this document so that next year when it gets into I guess December this year, if I think, all right, we might try to become a LEED city next year, then I start looking into that one. So I'm trying to set that up so that any grants that are cyclical I'll have a little bit more advance notice on them.
Great.
Right now, I think a lot that I'm finding out about, it's 3 weeks before the grant closes, and I've got to do all the research internally and then figure out who to talk to. And
Are you the person who applies for the Med Drop grant, or is that, does the police department do that, or who does that?
I'm not familiar with that one at all, so.
I know that one year, at least 1 year, Fitchburg missed applying.
Okay.
And I think that that's a perpetual, I don't know who provides it, I don't know if that's from the state.
Certainly one I can look into.
You
It
might
sounds like something, I would think that would be something the police department would do, but I don't know. I would need to check it out.
When I say we, I mean, Public Works did the first year,
Okay.
and I don't know what happened after that, but I know 1 year it was missed.
Okay.
And then just in terms of other past history, Rick Eilertson used to be a machine at getting stormwater grants. I mean, it seemed like every meeting he had a new grant that we had been awarded for stormwater, so he did a lot of work on our ponds over the course of, the time that I started with RCC from 2008 through 2015. I bet you there was a dozen pond grants that he had gotten. Just so you're aware that some of those are there and probably right up somewhere in somebody's file.
Yep.
And then, the other one, which you probably heard about, is the LED grant. I think it was during Erica's time, so that would have been more of like the 2015 to probably 2013 to 2015 range, 2016 LED grants or LED streetlights.
Right.
So that was like a $75,000 grant. you know, again, you know, like, I don't know that these are cyclical every year, and, you know, they probably try to get around to other communities, but,
Yeah.
you know, certainly, you know, a good project, you know, that we'd like to highlight at the committee of the whole meetings and so forth, but just wanted to make you aware of some of the people that did them previously,
Yep.
and about the timing that some of those were going in, and we were getting frequent grants.
I think the one most promising option I'm familiar with, just coming into this position, is focus on energy. That if we're looking at some of these retro commissioning options, if we're looking at LED upgrades in buildings, there are focus on energy incentive dollars available specifically for those projects. So I've already initiated some discussions with Kevin and had a chat with him and Wendy Rawson over at the library to talk about, you know, what kinds of things are on our priorities list, and if we get into the point of looking to do some of those upgrades ahead of schedule, then absolutely we'd be looking at applying for focus dollars.
I know, as you mentioned, you tend to find out about these grants 3 weeks before the deadline.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know how the word gets out there, but Erica had the same problem, because there was a grant available that we could replace these.
Okay.
And she found out like 2 weeks before, and there wasn't any time to get estimates or everything that needed to be done. So, I don't know, when people put grants out there, I don't know where they put it.
Now there's some I don't know. There's some organizations that specifically have, you know, somebody in charge of development, and part of their role is just going out and finding fundraising. So they spend a lot more time actively looking for those.
Okay.
So, you know, because it's part of my role, but not all of it, it's something where creating a tool like this where I know, oh, it's the first week of January, I'd better check out and see if these grants are available again this year. Like something like that is going to give us a leg up
Okay.
from where we used to be, I hope.
Well, speaking of lights, since some of these are burnt out, let's not replace those inefficient ones.
Good idea. Yeah, and one more thing to add, Dane County, I think that they have potentially some type of sustainability grant, because I think they recently awarded, actually in-house to like the Dane County landfill to build a waste as a resource trailer. And so that was like
Was that related to the renewable natural gas collection that they're doing?
Yeah, I mean, kind of. It's part of that story. But you know, even looking in, you know, within Dane County to see if there's grants within Dane County might be an option. I'll try to find the name of that grant and share that with you.
Good. And then a bullet point that I've seen in the previous community of the whole presentation says, one of the criteria items for grants is to have a sustainability plan. And so I don't know if, you know,
Cyclical.
Circle, right?
Be
right.
sure to
So,
mention that.
Bullet point.
So, yeah.
Be sure to mention that at the committee of the whole.
Yep.
So even if it's not useful for other things, it checks
Yeah.
that box.
Yep,
Yeah.
Right.
exactly, so,
All right.
good to have.
Yep. Good point.
All right, let's move on to some old business here, if no one has any questions or thoughts. We have a resolution on the agenda here. I know Claudia brought it up last meeting, 2 meetings ago, but kind of introduced it. We had a good discussion, and I think the action was to bring a resolution to us, and I think Claudia can talk more about it, but I think it's already been through Public Works.
Yes, it has, and Public Works supported it. And now it's coming to RCC and then to council. So I know Jeremy came, I believe, in the October meeting and gave an in-depth look at this. Did anyone want me to go over some of that information again, or did you have specific questions on what was included in the packet?
I think this came up because I wasn't at the October meeting, but I asked, after reading the minutes, what was decided, and that's when we realized that no action, that we needed to do formal action, so I think that's why this is here today. And it sounded, based on the minutes from October, that everybody was already on board.
Mm-hmm.
So, can I make a motion to, let's see, would the verb be approve this resolution?
Yeah, is it approve or adopt?
Adopt.
Adopt the resolution. Do we have a second to?
I'll second.
Okay. Any discussion before we have a vote? All in favor of approving the adoption, or all in favor of adopting the resolution R 200-19, the resolution to join the Green Tier Clear Waters Initiative. Say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous decision that the RCC recommends the adoption of resolution R-200-19. Great,
Just save some time there.
Yeah.
great. Good job, Claudia.
Okay.
Yes, good job.
Did Public, I've asked this now, but did Public Works have any discussion or comment? Or
No,
Great.
it went right through.
I know it's been ongoing efforts even before this. I
Mhm.
think it's great. All right, moving on to item 5B. The Sustained Dane outing took place back in November, was it, Chris?
Yeah, November 19th. So it was a sustainability summit, so Sustained Dane put it on. Phil and I attended on behalf of Fitchburg, and Mayor Richardson also represented Fitchburg at the event. I don't know if there's any others there. Phil, do you remember anybody else from the community that was there?
I don't recall anybody else from the city of Fitchburg.
Yeah. So it was held at the Promega, the auditorium where we had our event last April. And there was a very good attendance. I would say probably a couple hundred people there.
Oh, good.
Very well attended, great speakers. I think, some of the things that, Phil and I talked quite a bit during the event, and some of the themes were to really, if you really want to make something sustainable, you have to kind of go down to the roots and really kind of build it from the ground up. So the example that they used, and I probably would have to find like the slide or the photo and share it out, but it was the iceberg, and 2/3 of the iceberg is underneath the water. You only see the top third, and it talks about going down to those roots to really build up kind of whatever sustainability initiatives that you're trying to do. And an important aspect of it is social equity, and really got us thinking about the events that we've done over the years, where we've gone out into different parts of the community, but I think there's an opportunity to do better in terms of going out into the community more and listening to what people want to learn about. I think we pick topics, and I think we've done a good job of doing that. But we've talked about maybe there's some opportunity to go out in the community and do some potential listening sessions ourselves, and really challenge ourselves to try to reach new people instead of preaching to the choir, which I feel like, if you think about a lot of our events, it seems like we're preaching to the choir, and I know that we rotate new people in and so forth, but we thought a good challenge for the next decade would be to try to get out and hear some more people, and maybe share some different messaging to connect with people on sustainability that might not be coming to all of our events at the library per se. So I don't know if there's anything that you want to add to it. That was one of my takeaways. I don't know if you have anything else you want to.
No, I think that pretty well captures the general theme of the event. Some really good discussions. Mayor Richardson talked on a panel about Dane County and Madison and Fitchburg, and I'm trying to remember if there was one other representative, or was it those three?
So it was Joe Parisi from Dane County, and then
and Mayor Saji Rhodes Conway.
Yep, from Madison, and then I forget
and
who
then
the
Mayor
other.
Richardson, and I think a fourth, and I'm blanking on it, but just talking about local sustainability efforts and how they're kind of embracing that philosophy of building from the roots up, and not just addressing symptoms, but actually trying to more fundamentally address structures that are unsustainable.
There were some book recommendations there. I think I should really dig back to that slide, and then the book recommendations. I think there were some really good recommendations out there, and so I'll work with Phil, and we'll go back to our notes and share some of those things out a little after due, long after due. But I think some good themes coming out of it that I think are good takeaways for us to think about, at least in how we go about putting on our events and getting our sustainability message out in the community.
If I could just add something or just
Sure.
comment, the last film that we had at the library, the attendees, I don't think that they had attended a previous Green Thursday event. I think that was, and I'm not exactly sure why we happened to succeed at that event, but for whatever reason, we do seem to be reaching some other people. You know, maybe we can go to I know they don't call it a PTO anymore, but some kind of a board at Leopold and talk to the parents and the teachers and find out what other things they'd like to know about or hear about, or how else we can help them. That might, I don't know, that might be one avenue. That reminds me, Claudia, did that list, some people requested a copy of the slide from that film. Did you ever get those sent out?
Yes, so the problem was on the sign-in sheet, I asked for addresses and people put their home address rather than their email address. So that made it, I guess, more difficult to send out, and then it fell off my radar. So I did not send that out.
It hasn't been sent out?
Mm-mm.
Oh. Is that possible to still do?
I don't see why not. I can add that back to my list.
Just with a little explanation, sorry for the delay. And, I mean, isn't it just putting it in an envelope and, right, getting it?
Yeah, I think I was going to do a little bit more research too. I know looking up Kim's article was something that we were going to include, and then I'll have to check my notes, but I think there were a couple other things that I was going to try to include in that.
Because the graphic was, correct me if I'm wrong, but it was each of the recycling numbers and kind of what they meant and if they could be recycled or not. I think generally that could be very helpful for just our committee in general to have, let alone just sending out to these few individuals. So I think that's something we can bring up again.
Maybe just keep it as simple as possible and use that in Kim's article and a note that you're sorry that you didn't get this out to them sooner, and save you some time doing further digging. I mean, people can certainly do more research on their own,
I can do
but
that.
it was nice of you to offer to do that.
Yeah.
I
Sorry,
mean, the
didn't
other
get
thing
that.
you could do is just add the link to the Pelletieri, because they list out all of the recyclable numbers and items, you know, that can be recycled. And I think we've put it out on our green e-newsletter list before.
I actually extracted it from the film, so she's got what
she
showed on the
does.
screen.
Okay.
Yep, she already
Okay.
has that.
But yeah, circling back, your point about these people were like, who's the RCC?
Yeah.
They showed up, we talked, we were the RCC of Fitchburg, and so it was good to see new people. I think that's going to be an ongoing effort with the marketing area of everything, so it's good. Do you think the Sustained Aim should be an annual event that kind of we participate in, or?
I think I think we'll get into another agenda item that relationship is budding and growing.
Just so happens it's the next one, right? 5C.
Well, yeah, that's one area where it's, we'll talk about it.
Sure.
So, Shelley and I have been attending meetings with Promega for the annual event. Do you want to give an update, or do you want me to run through it?
Go ahead, you have most of the, I do most of the marketing, he did all the getting of speakers.
Yeah, well,
and
I
things
think
like that.
we probably can give more updates as we move forward. I've been doing a little bit more in the trenches trying to get the speakers lined up for it, but we've been having very positive meetings with Promega. They have essentially their sustainability team has tripled over there in the last year. So they have a lot of different people. They have just their own subcommittee working on this particular event, which is larger than last year. So there's a pretty good buzz over there on the sustainability front right now. So they're excited about this event, and they want to make some adjustments to it to make it even better than the event that we had last year. They felt like they didn't do a great job of internal advertising, so that's been a pretty focal point of this event.
Yeah, we got started a lot earlier this year. We get to use, because of the last year and having everything done, we can use all those, you know, the marketing tools and all those things, and then we've gotten rolling a lot earlier this year, so, go ahead.
Yeah, and then I think, you know, the food waste topic has been one that did really well at a Sustained Dane event back in October that I attended. And so we thought that this would be a good time to potentially do an event on trying to reduce our food waste. It's been a while since we've done one, and I don't know that we've ever done an event, you know, specifically focused in on trying to reduce food waste. So I did send an email out to folks asking if they had any ideas for how to name this event. Right now we have reducing our food waste. I don't know if there's a better idea that anybody came up with.
Catchier, come on, people.
You might, maybe you could phrase it food waste, and then dash, are you doing the best you can do? Or can you reduce your waste? Can you, well, that would sort of be double negative.
Yeah, we came up with
But ask a
ideas.
question, like, are you doing everything you could?
Yeah.
Or something, maybe that would
Could you do
ensure
better?
people, yeah.
Reducing our food waste. Could you do better?
I think some people don't even know.
Don't even know what.
And if they could do better,
That they could do better.
do they
There's
care?
things they can do, yeah.
All right, well,
But yeah, it's, they have, one of the guys, people I was impressed with was their garden that they grow over there for.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he's been involved in a lot of that, and he has a lot of contacts, and it's just been, they're pretty excited.
I'm
What-
pretty excited about
What's
it.
the date?
The date is April 16th, so to load up our April.
Yeah.
But they aren't gonna have their sustainability, wellness, summit the next day, which is what happened, you know, the last time we had, this event. We were manning a booth at Promega the very next day. So, they have separated that out, so that's a good thing. This event, we're setting it at 4:30, just to try to catch more of the Promega employees. It's a little bit dangerous waters in terms of trying to get the general public in to attend it, but it is the 50th year of Earth Day. And so, you know, I think, you know, if there's ever a good reason to take off work early during Earth Week, you know, maybe that would be a good event for people to go to. And I don't think it's too terribly early, you know, 4:30 is a pretty decent time.
Isn't that when it started last year?
It started at 5:30 last year,
So it's even earlier? No, I think it started.
but at 5.
It was 5.
It started early enough
4:30
that
or 5.
we thought that it was too early for people that didn't work at Promega to get there.
Mhm.
Yeah, well, it's starting earlier this year.
So it's primarily gonna be Promega.
Well,
Promega retired people there.
I don't
I
know. I
wasn't-
mean,
I
we
wasn't
also
there.
have Sustained Dane's reach, so Sustained Dane is partnering up, and so they're gonna cast out to their followers and supporters, so that's something that we've never had before.
I wasn't there for the time discussion, but
Yeah.
we have changed the format a little bit, so instead of feeding people prior to the panel discussion, we're going to, so we'll feed people after, and we're going to have booths and other companies, organizations that are, that push this agenda too. So they'll have booths, so we'll have like a networking food afterwards instead, so hopefully that'll keep people there and keep the conversation going.
And
So the
this-
food will be later instead of early.
So what are the hours then? 4:30 till when?
4:30 until 6, essentially. So it could go a little bit longer if you choose to network, but we're gonna try to keep the program about an hour. So in terms of the program, it'll be Brian Johnson from the City of Madison will be talking about the organics collection pilot that they did this fall. So that'll be kind of, he'll be giving the overview, and then the other two speakers are geared at trying to share tools with people on how they can reduce their food waste. So one will be somebody from UW Extension that's going to talk about composting, and then the second will be curbside composter. So they're providing a service where they'll come curbside and pick up your food waste if you don't want to do composting on your property. So And then there would be a panel discussion that would be moderated by somebody from UW-Madison's Office of Sustainability. And on that panel, we might also include John Welsh with Dane County Department of Waste and Renewables. So the panel, each of the talks would be about 10 to 15 minutes, so pretty short talks, and then there would be a 20 to 25 minutes for the discussion, question and answer.
Chris, maybe you want to tweak the title then, because I was thinking you were going to talk to people about reducing the amount of food they waste, not reducing the amount they put in their garbage. And you're really reducing what they put in their garbage because they're composting. So maybe tweak it and just say, I don't know, is your food waste working for you? I mean, that's just off the top of my head, but I'm concerned that people will think the way I thought. You know, how can we get more bang for our buck, or not have food spoil so fast or something?
Giving food waste a second life.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Oh, that's a good one. Giving food waste a second life.
I like it.
Make your food waste work for you?
I like that too.
Something like
Or
that.
work for us. Work for all of us.
Is your food waste working?
Does it at all touch about just the previous, not the actual waste, but reducing the waste? Maybe I was out of the loop, but I mean, food waste in general, just the amount of food that isn't consumed,
Yeah.
like it is significant. Is a significant issue. I don't know if this is intended to do that, or more focused on the second or the.
I mean, it's really, we're reducing the food waste that's going into your dumps, essentially.
Into the landfill.
Into
Right,
the
but
landfill.
Right, but you're still buying it. It's still getting grown, and
Yeah, I don't know. I mean,
I guess there's just maybe there's just two large topics that can't really even go together because they're so large.
I mean, I could see the UW Extension person potentially talking a little bit about that.
Sure.
I think in terms of curbside composter, they're going to talk about what they do with the food waste. Is they actually take it to pigs and they, livestock.
Sure.
Essentially they eat it up first and then it's composted after that.
I would just, as you flush it out, what people are going to talk about, I would just keep in mind that some people are going to think about the waste that goes from the waste less at the table versus waste less that's going into garbage. So just think about that when you come up with so people aren't going there thinking, I'm not gonna waste as many groceries.
Yeah.
Save money and less waste.
Yeah.
I get your point.
Should be a good event though, regardless of kind of what the specific topic is. But it's good. Do you need any help from anybody else? It seems like you guys have a good start.
I think we have it covered. I think community outreach subcommittee will help out with marketing.
Okay.
We'll give you an update at the next meeting as to how some of these thoughts, I appreciate everybody's feedback, and we'll try to refine it a little bit just to make sure that people understand what topic they're coming to learn about.
What about the Star? Did we talk about what's the article going in the beginning of April?
So I will probably, I just want to go really quickly because I think we're way behind. So Neil Patton, who came out and I think was writing an article for Al Leopold, I didn't see it in the January issue. I would like to reach out to him and see if he'd want to come and do an article on what Promega is doing to try to, deal with their food waste. And maybe that's a term, dealing with food waste.
Yeah, that's not bad.
Yeah.
How are you dealing with your food waste? I don't know, something
What
like
happens
that.
after the table? Because it is all about after you eat, not
Yeah.
Right.
before.
Are you suggesting that he write an article for the Star?
Potentially, yeah, because
This is getting a little bit ahead, but it'll save time
No, it's
later.
okay.
Claudia offered to write an article. Nancy was originally going to have the article for January, but her article sort of exploded into a thesis. And while she was reducing it, Claudia offered to write an article on reducing road salt. And in fact, she did write an article on road salt and sent it in to Jim. And he said that, I was gonna print out his email. He didn't think he could use it because it sounded more like an article that should have been on the city page rather than, remember, he's trying to be the persuasive angle, and he said it was too similar to the one that I wrote. And Claudia pointed out that the one that I wrote was sort of comprehensive. It included water softener salt and road salt. He had a couple of other things, but basically it was, Claudia had some diagrams in there, and Jim doesn't include diagrams in our articles, and it just, unfortunately, in his mind, it was not workable. So if you have, so that's why we didn't have a January article, but if you ask Neil to do one, I'm just warning you about that if it's too reporting on something, this is what Leopold is doing, rather than persuading people to also jump in, it won't get printed. Unless it can be on the city page,
Will
or.
that article be considered one of our articles?
No.
And then if it isn't, does it have
Neil's?
to? Yeah.
If you're submitting it as
No,
one of our, oh, you're not.
No, he contacted you first, right? And then you referred him to both Chris and I, and he was interested in exploring the work we've been doing at Aldo Leopold and the awards that Aldo Leopold had received.
Okay.
So this was him writing the article.
Okay,
So
so we're not
it
talking about
doesn't-
putting it in
no.
the Star. I
Well,
thought you were.
he's writing, Neil wrote the story.
Oh.
He interviewed us,
Okay.
and then he
But it's
came
not
to
gonna be like an
Leopold.
RCC submitted
Okay.
article.
Yeah,
I get
yeah,
it.
it's completely
Okay,
separate.
So at the same time, Promega wanted somebody, I said, well, you could write an article about what you're doing here at Promega, and they felt, weird about that, self-promoting and persuading.
I felt that it would be too, that we probably wouldn't like it if we just did one article just on them, what they do. I didn't think it would be fair to we don't even know what other businesses in Fitchburg do for this subject, so.
So we thought maybe Neil would write an article on it.
oh, okay,
Wouldn't count against it, but would help to promote the event that we're having on April 16th, because the timing is good in relation to when the Fitchburg Star would come out.
is Neil a reporter for the Star?
Yes,
Oh, I
and
see.
recycling,
Yeah.
Okay,
so
sorry.
we've got that all settled.
Okay.
I'm gonna let that drop, and we'll talk more about it next month.
Sounds good. Let's move on to 5D, efforts to meet the clean energy resolution.
All right. So, I guess just kind of, I'm trying to remember what the reason was for adding this to the agenda, but I just kind of have a list in my own notes of what has been done so far to get us there. So the clean energy resolution builds on that 25 by 25, trying to get 25% municipal renewable electricity use by 2025 and then 100% by 2030. So where we are right now, based on the latest reporting that was done actually at the start of last year with 2018 numbers from Craig Weiss, was that we are at 13.7% of municipal electricity use is coming from renewable sources. So that leaves us a little bit over 11% short of our 25 by 25 commitment. So that comes from a little under 400 kilowatt capacity of panels installed on some of our municipal buildings, Green Power Tomorrow and shared solar purchasing that we're doing from MG&E, the ongoing energy efficiency and improvements that have reduced our total energy usage. And then we're looking at discussing with MG&E, and I've just last week submitted a resolution to Common Council for us to purchase 250 kilowatts worth of capacity, further capacity from the upcoming O'Brien Solar Farm for the city of Fitchburg's use. It would essentially be treated as renewable energy credits. So anytime those solar panels are producing that, 250 kilowatts will be 1/80th of the total solar project. So anytime that whole array is generating electricity, 1/80th of it is credited to us, and whichever of our buildings are using electricity at that time, coincidentally with the production, they would essentially, in proportion to which meters are using how much, they'd credit that solar energy to those meters proportionally, and we'd be buying that solar energy at a fixed per kWh rate, as opposed to whatever the fluctuating energy rate would be from the grid at that time.
Why is it limited to 1/80th? Why can't it be more?
So the short version is, I don't know if I approached them too late. There had been initial discussions that I don't know if Ellen had discussed this with them or if the discussion started after she left, but there had been some initial discussions with MG&E about this project. I reached out to them in November and kind of got the impression that we could get as much as 0.5 megawatt of capacity, and I just kept not getting any definitive answer. So it was sort of, we know you've got 250 kilowatts available. We think somebody else might back out. If so, you can have 500. And so we were kind of proceeding with this possibility of 500, and maybe I'm not sure all the details. I know that 250 is all we were ever guaranteed, and it sounds like they have a lot of other commercial customers that they're bringing into this. So I think they wanted to spread out the participation and make sure that it wasn't just a couple of institutions using up all the electricity for this. It would have been nice to get.
People are on solar, so.
Right, yeah, exactly. So it's the drawback is we don't get to claim it for Fitchburg, but the project goes forward regardless. They said they had enough interest in this project. They didn't give a specific number. This is sort of the sense that I got just from how they described it. It kind of sounded like they could do another 10 to 15 megawatts within a few years and have it totally filled just with the requests they got to participate in this project. So they are technically not oversubscribed, but with the amount of interest they got, essentially they were oversubscribed in this project. So it was, we kind of snuck in under the wire to be able to get involved in it at all. I was kind of expecting them to reach out to me, and they were waiting for me to reach out to them, and just got some wires crossed, I think. But yeah, we'll get getting the 500 kilowatts would have been nice. The good thing about being limited to 250 is that if there's ever a point where the amount that we have is producing more than what we're actually using, the excess gets sold back to the grid and we get paid a wholesale rate for that. So that essentially it's considered, they call it spillage. 250 kilowatts, there's almost no spillage, which makes it a really easy sell. If we went up to 500, there would be some limited amount of spillage, so then we're paying 6.4 cents per kilowatt hour for everything that's being produced, but maybe 5% of that we're selling back at 2.5 cents per kilowatt hour. And now there's that concern of we're buying it all at one price, selling some of it at a lower, and is that, what's the trade-off, the cost benefit? The 250 makes it nice and clean. There should be very little spillage. It should have no real negative impacts there. But that 250 kilowatts should produce enough electricity that it's going to get us tantalizingly close to 25% by the end of, I guess, whenever we're fully on board. The 20, I need to confirm this with MG&E still, because I kind of got the impression from talking to them that we'd be fully on board by the end of this year, but the 20 megawatt project is a multi-year. So they're doing it in stages, 6 megawatts, then 6, and then 7. I don't know if it's going to take 2 or 3 years to fully build. So I need to make sure how much we'll actually have by the end of 2020. But certainly, this gets us up in like the 23 to 25% range by the end of 2022 at the latest. So we're definitely on track to hit our 25 by 25 without much difficulty between this and then pushing some of the recommendations from the OEI grant report to reduce our total energy load.
Good.
Right.
Yeah, I know this was just, maybe I brought this topic up, but I know, we did such a rush and a good job to get the resolution passed, and it kind of went quiet. And I know there was some transitions.
Yep, and some of the transition and some confusion over, I know one of the the beneficial things that I brought to the role is I've got 6 years working in energy efficiency.
Right.
And even so, coming in and looking at some of these energy reports, like I'm scratching my head trying to decipher it. And so some of it was just that there's so much data and it's in several different places, and there's always just like a little bit of a difference in how it's reported, and trying to make sense of all that and make one coherent, make sense of the entire picture is it's a challenge.
Right.
So that definitely is something that we're up against with talking about the clean energy resolution, is just really making sure that we're being as precise as possible.
Right. Right. Yeah, I know this is a big topic, and I know we could probably talk about other stuff. Like I'm curious
Yeah.
if we rehired Craig Weiss to do another year of his services. I know he's sent a proposal.
Yep,
but-
I've had conversations with him, so that was one of those wires crossed where he was kind of expecting to do quarterly updates.
Okay.
I didn't realize that, so I got in touch with him in December, and he said, "Oh, you still want me to do the work?" So Craig is working on a 2019 kind of year-end report right now. I met with him 2 weeks ago to talk about that, and hopefully, just kind of waiting to hear back from him on what his status is. And I'm hoping sometime in February we'll have a picture of how things changed from 18 to 19.
Keep in mind that his last report was not comprehensive.
In what way?
It didn't include Alliant Energy, it only included
Right, yeah,
MGE.
so I didn't realize until November, I think, that we had any Alliant meters. Craig didn't know until he and I met at the end of December, early January.
He knew because he came to this meeting and I asked him about it.
Oh, okay, so he wasn't sure where that data, I had to get in touch with Alliant, and then we didn't have a signed approval to submit Alliant data directly to Craig. So I got that taken care of. He's going to have that Alliant data for this report.
He also didn't, his baseline was not the same. We did a greenhouse gas inventory way back when, and he wasn't given access to that information. So
Okay.
for trending purposes, it might be helpful. There should
Sure.
be, there used to be a notebook in the library upstairs.
I would say for the 2019 report, it's probably too late to do something like that. For sure, if we talk about keeping him on contract for 2020 and doing another report, then that would be definitely something we want to make sure we look into. But I think at this point, getting back into giving him the greenhouse gas inventory data, I think is probably too late.
Okay.
I think this is a good topic, and I think I'll definitely have this on the next agenda too. So I think a lot of good topics. I think Phil, you've done a good job with the O'Brien Solar Farm, getting our foot in, right?
When you work with Craig, could you just do what you can to get his charts labeled a little bit better,
Sure.
please?
Yep, I'm assuming that I'll get to review a draft before he's got it finalized, but
Okay.
yeah,
Thanks.
I'll do what I can on that.
So we're 25 minutes behind with 25 minutes remaining, so we gotta go halftime the remaining.
All right.
So
Okay.
think about that as you talk about your topics.
Sure. Well, hopefully this next topic, the final annual report.
We're gonna win some time back.
Yeah?
I made all of the changes requested in November
Great.
and did it.
Well, I have a couple things.
Sure.
If we did finish the recycling guide update, then let's put that back in, that we finished it.
So we finished it in January of 2020, so that's,
Okay.
I took it out because of that.
Okay,
'Cause-
then I would encourage you to include the pounds of batteries that we recycled. I
Mhm.
think that quantifies it a little bit better.
That one, there was something that,
I think we just said that
I thought the
we
batteries I
discontinued
included.
it.
Yeah, I
You
thought I had
you
added
included
batteries, I did
batteries,
not.
but you didn't quantify how many we recycled. And I would move the lobby recycling under solid waste, refuse
Okay.
and recycling.
Is that in the packet?
Yes.
Yeah, I just read it.
Which, do you know what page
Page
it is?
10.
Page 10, thanks. So I put in my notes for this, in the agenda, that I had added battery pounds, so that's a bummer that I
Oh.
didn't. Oh, I really thought I added pounds. Yeah, I'll get those in there. I
And-
think
and-
Dakota shared those with me. The holiday lights, yeah, I guess we didn't record poundage
So-
on holiday lights last year. At least Dakota couldn't find it.
That's all right. I don't think we've ever recorded that, but
Okay,
I
but
would-
batteries, he gave me pounds, so I can get that in there.
I would just move that all under solid waste. It's in recycling initiative. Well, I
Okay.
guess that's not an initiative, but it is solid waste. That's all.
I think this would be good to wrap up, and then, I don't know if you've historically sent it to the committee of the whole as
I
a,
think it should be part of the packet.
as a packet. Okay.
When we do our committee of the whole.
They should get it in advance rather than
Yep.
hand it out.
Right,
Yeah.
okay. Very good. I'll just follow up with Phil regarding that.
Yep.
We got some time. That's good. Okay. That's good. I like it. I think it's a comprehensive report. Moving on to 5F, Committee of the Whole Planning. I think this one can go pretty quick. We've kind of been in and out throughout this whole topic tonight, or whole discussion tonight, but Chris and I, and hopefully Phil will be there to present. Sarah will obviously be there.
Can't get out of that.
I will be circulating PowerPoint slides to the group to review. I know I've been updating it from previous presentations and putting in new information and new pictures and working through that. So once I have it to a good spot, I'll send it around for any input that people might have.
Nate, would you,
Yes.
as part of the sustainability discussion, maybe start that with mentioning or clarifying that we're at 13.7 now on that energy resolution? Because remember, this was misstated last year, and I just kind of want to drive home that this is really where we are.
Right, not the 21 or.
Yeah, and I think that might lead very nicely into the sustainability
Yep.
plan that you're talking about.
Yep.
And then I just wanted to, just because, I mean, I know you mentioned that you two and you three would be there, but everybody is welcome to go. I mean, this is RCC's annual report to the council. And they, sometimes they ask questions and, well, I guess they usually ask questions, but everybody's
Yeah.
welcome to go. And you, it's not
Yeah,
intimidating.
if
It's
other people
informal.
want to present, I think right now, I'm willing to present. Nate, I think you would be presenting, and then Phil, I think you would be presenting a portion as well. But if anybody else wants to present on anything, you're welcome to do that. And some of the, this is thinking way back to some of our committee of the whole meetings that we've had. I think the most recent ones, it's been just a few of us there, but I do recall some of my first committee of the whole meetings that I went to, where we had pretty much most of our commission there. That was an eye-opening experience for me, and it was nice to have open dialogue with council members and really just kind of connect on where we can lead the community forward and on the sustainability front and environmental fronts.
This is really our opportunity. I mean, although Sarah gives updates, this is really our opportunity to have an exchange of information with the council, where they want us to go and where we thought we were, the direction that we think that we're going in, if they want any course corrections.
So I would propose that potentially you and I and Phil maybe connect. Maybe we could have a quick after work meeting at the library and just kind of go through our approach to the presentation and figure out any action that we need to clean up the slides before we circulate it out to everybody. I don't think it needs to be a long meeting, but just to make sure we have a game plan for how we want to present it and who's going to present what.
Sure. Make sure that it's pretty final before we send it out.
Yeah, and I think our goal would be to send it out before the next meeting. So we do have another meeting before the committee of the whole. So we have a meeting on February 17th, I believe. So that would be a good time to, get any final thoughts on it. But I think we'll have it a little more polished at that point.
Can you let us know what time it is, 7 or 8?
I'm pretty sure it's 7 o'clock.
I just put 7.
I'll confirm it, and then Claudia, if you'd be able to send out like an appointment maybe.
Sure, yeah, I can do that.
That'd be great.
7 o'clock, February 26th.
7?
So we're first on the agenda, so that's good.
Yay.
Fresh minds, right? Sarah, any tips of advice for the committee of the whole presentation? I know we could probably talk at the next meeting too.
Yeah, I can't think of anything.
Okay.
I do I'm excited by the idea of giving more exposure to the RCC, and I like the idea of having the other communities, because I think that that is really powerful, just to kind of show that we should be coming along with the times, that I think that research will really help, and just kind of any kind of guidance as to how it will help and would be used in the future would be powerful as well.
Good. Let's not forget the goal of, getting grants. Having a sustainability plan can be helpful for that.
Okay. Very good. Let's move on to 5G, Fitchburg Star articles. We've touched on this before. As of right now, Nancy sent hers out and provided some good comments I saw. So hers will be published for the February Star. And then after that, we have nothing planned. I know I have brought up maybe a topic or two, but and then I don't think we want to double up the food waste one necessarily.
No, I mean, I think, it depends if they're gonna do it or not. So I think we need to figure out if they're gonna, and even if they aren't, I don't know that it's gonna count as an RCC article. And if ever a month to have, multiple articles on sustainability and environmental, it's the month of April. Just because it is the 50th anniversary of Earth Day. So
Maybe if somebody does an article on that, how far we've come from Earth Day, I don't know, history.
if we can do that in a persuasive, it
Oh,
always
yeah,
comes back to the
sorry.
persuasive context.
Sorry.
Is always the
Well, what
challenge.
can you do,
with it.
what can you do in the future, things, I don't know. Just an
Are you
idea.
volunteering to write?
No, I am definitely, I was just thinking one of you great
Just
minds
like-
can find.
I've done it a couple of times the last couple of years on Earth Day.
Oh,
So,
you have? Okay,
I have,
sorry.
so no. So I'm opting out again, because I've done, I think, 2. Not last year, we didn't do one, but the previous 2 years. So,
I'm still due to write an article on solar. I, kind of 2 years, a little over 2 years into my solar system. My solar system
Solar
on my
system.
house.
You have your own solar system.
wow.
Wow.
Cool.
So, and then just talking about the payback with that, and now having an electric car in the mix, there's a dynamic there that's changing it a little bit. Not that, still getting the same amount of, the sun's gonna come, when it's gonna come, but my draw, with having an electric vehicle has made me think about some things a little bit more, so I could kind of do a little spin off on that within the article.
Yeah.
Are you suggesting doing that for March? You've got a pretty heavy plate. between now and
That's
then.
why I'm hesitating.
Well,
I have a lot of presentations over the next month, I think 8 to 10. So,
I might throw myself into the fire here. I know some of you know we have a little baby girl on the way, and she's due early March, and so I'd like to get the article out
Out of the
before
way.
that. So,
Congratulations.
yeah, thank you.
Awesome.
Yeah,
To get it done.
yeah. So I'm going to throw myself in there, and I'll have the March article.
In spite of the committee of the whole person?
No.
what are you going to talk about?
I think I've talked about just talking about the resolution, the clean energy resolution, maybe saying where we are and what you as a resident can do, because I think
That
with the
would be great.
I think that would be
right,
good.
because I think we have enough documents talking about what the city can do, kind of with this report coming out with the grant money, but I think there's not much of what individual residents can help towards that resolution.
Good idea.
Yeah. Well, that's a big part of that resolution too, was also getting, so it's, what is it, trying to achieve 30% total city energy reduction by 2025, and also trying to encourage the community to do the same.
Right.
That would be nice to hit that.
So yeah, that's what I'm thinking. I'll give an update at the next meeting, but I'll pencil myself in for March.
And then I could do April on the solar. I can commit to the next month, not this February. It's not going to be good.
I have a tentative article that I started working on sometime last year, just a really general about all this now focus on climate change, and more people are buying into it, so here are things that you can do. So it could fit in anywhere.
good.
And I was thinking of, I have to think on this a little more, but something around kind of pollinators, native plants, and lawn care. So,
That would have been a perfect March one. People are gonna be doing stuff in
I
April.
know, I can't do March. That's my busy time at work. So, yeah, I don't know if like May, June are too late for that, but
That's good. Yeah, give it some thought. We'll
Okay.
maybe give some update at the next meeting. But I think we're good. We have the next kind of few months planned away here, so that's good.
Before you move on, I
Yep.
want to thank Sarah for her December article.
yeah.
So good, we committed to 9 for this year, so we've got one down.
Yeah.
Thanks, Nancy. That was a real eye-opener article.
Yeah, it was
Yeah,
good.
good stats.
You should just
I don't know how
go
you
in
happened on that, but it was like, wow, who knew?
Go in and start reading stuff. It's amazing.
Yeah.
The one thing that you need to do is check the date, because a lot of the stuff is 10 years
Okay,
old,
yeah.
and so much has changed in 10 years.
Yeah.
It's
Probably
amazing.
worse.
Yeah, it is,
That's
it's much worse.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
much worse.
Hmm.
One of the things that I couldn't fit in there is a lot of clothes that are returned from mail order or online orders go immediatally to the dump.
I
Really?
I've seen that.
Or are incinerated, because they're so cheap, and it's more expensive
To repackage?
to repackage it and
That
then
needs
to
to
just
go in there,
throw it
that
out.
needs to go in there, because some people.
Yeah,
like
that's only one sentence. I think you can squeeze that in.
I mean, I've taken so much stuff I've written and rewritten and it was very frustrating to.
But you know how many people order clothes online and they just, free returns, and, you
Yeah,
know.
well,
and
it's
you
hard,
just-
it's hard to say too,
It
because
depends on the company.
it depends.
I understand that, but just in general, if you have that in your head, then maybe you'll be a little more careful about what you order. I don't know. But go
Yeah,
ahead.
it's one of the things that was hard to figure out how to put in a very short sentence, so.
True.
Anyway, thank you.
Nice job.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Excellent.
Caught up a little bit here, Chris, but
So we're 4 minutes behind, so if we spend 1 minute on community outreach, I don't know, I think we need a couple more minutes of that.
you can have a couple
All right.
more than just 1 minute.
All
Go
right,
for it.
well, we're gonna get after it then. So we had a community outreach subcommittee meeting last Thursday, so it was Phil and Kim and I. We just talked a little bit about, developing that idea that I had mentioned coming out of the Sustainability Summit, which was to try to potentially go out and do, get into some different areas within the community, do some listening sessions, build some potential surveys, and just try to figure out more of what's people want to hear about in terms of sustainability, and get a little bit away from our comfort zone and kind of challenge ourselves to collect that information. And so I think that was probably the big theme coming out of it. One of the ideas that we did 5 years ago was go to the Boys and Girls Club. We've been doing a lot of good stuff, obviously, in the schools with the recycling and waste reduction, and so we thought that was in 2015. We thought it might be a nice time to try to go back to the Boys and Girls Club this summer and do an event similar to what we had done back in 2015. So those are kind of our thoughts in terms of initiatives. I'll give a quick update, and then I'll let Kim kind of finish it off a little more specific on Aldo Leopold. On January 6th, I worked with Sustain Dane and officially passed the torch for kind of the greater initiative of trying to get the entire Madison School District to do a better job in their cafeterias with waste reduction and recycling. And so I helped them write a grant. Sustain Dane picked it up, and they've been moving this initiative. Well, we've submitted the grant, and we'll see if we win it. But regardless of the fact that if we win that or not, Sustain Dane has been so kind of into this story that they have decided to pick it up and move it forward, regardless of winning the grant or not. So they're prepared to hire staff. They're prepared to go after other people that might fund it, and I think they'll be in a lot better position than I will be, or Madison School District was, to try to get that funding, and so I think, you know, just the name Sustain Dane positions them well, and I think it's a good story, and it's, you know, it read well in the grant itself. You know, just, and I think it'll compete well with other causes that are out there. And
Okay, gave me chills. That's good. That's fabulous.
So-
Are
Good
they
job.
taking over Leopold then? The Leopold Recycling
Are
lunch
they?
hour?
No,
No.
not yet.
Oh,
We're still in the
Maybe
mix
down the
there.
road.
I haven't seen any emails about that, so I
Yeah.
thought, oh, okay.
No, I mean, I think, you know, it's gonna be a work in progress, so like,
Yeah.
you know, our role, I think, you know, Kim and I would be more in the advisory, role, and so kind of our first step is that this could get a little bit more public with them trying to go after fundraising locally on it. And so our first step in late February is that Steve Youngbauer, the Director of Food Nutrition for the Madison School District, Claire, the Director of Sustain Dane, and then Kim and I would go and meet with the publicity and potentially the new superintendent with Madison Schools and talk about you know, how we want to roll this out. We want to talk about some of the good things that they've been doing in the community, so elimination of straws and, you know, other things that have already happened, and some of the good work that's been starting at these other schools, and just talk about like how we want to roll this out in terms of an initiative that we want to accomplish here in the Madison area. So there's a
Great.
Nice job.
Yeah.
it's
Very
exciting.
gratifying, huh?
Yeah.
It's a lot of
Yeah.
work.
Yeah.
It's a lot of work. You did great. It's amazing.
So I don't know if you want to add anything specific about Leopold.
Sure. So I've been over there multiple times, just kind of checking in on how lunch is going. And when Chris had mentioned Neil from Fitchburg Star, he had contacted us about writing this article about the awards that Leopold had won. And that was the day I was going to be over there monitoring, so he came over to take some pictures. So I had a chance to connect him with Jessica, the vice principal, who is kind of one of our leads over there, and she was able to kind of talk to him about, you know, the great work that they're doing and the kids are doing and the excitement around the effort. So he got to see kind of firsthand the whole process. As you can imagine, you know, there's good days and there's bad days. And the biggest challenge that we're finding now is just the stacking of the trays and how they have a tendency to get out of hand. So Chris and I talked, and we're gonna find a time to go back over and kind of go back through and do an educational component with all of the grades and kind of getting them you know, reoriented with the tray stacking. You know, I've been trying to work with the lunchroom monitors, but it's just, I mean, even I went back after the holidays and there's like different staff that there's been changeover. So it's just, you know, ongoing, some of those ongoing challenges and stuff. But the hope is that if we get this grant or Sustain Dane comes in and helps out, we want to work on a promotional video that could be used in the classrooms with the teachers to kind of remind the kids, and it could be part of, you know, regular curriculum, or, you know, just showing the kids and reminding them like these are the various components. So whenever I'm there, the kids, I think, do a much better job because they see me there and they recognize me and they kind of step up to the plate. So it's just trying to get this to continue on. I mean, they're still recycling the milk cartons and everything. It's just, you know, I want perfection. No, that's not going to happen. And it just depends on the day and how the kids are doing and what's going on. But it is, you know, the process is still happening and things are happening. It's just sometimes the trays get out of control, and so we want to try and get. And there's always kids, as you know, that step up and help straighten things out at each lunch period.
That was me when I was young.
Exactly.
I think the challenge last year, Leopold switched how they handled things.
Yes.
Last year they had lunch and then they went out to recess. So nobody got to go out to recess for that class, that group, until things were cleaned up and
Yep.
done correctly. Well, now they have recess and they come in for lunch, and then their teachers come in to get them to go back to
Yeah.
the classroom, and it's like, nobody
It's a
is,
free-for-all.
yeah, nobody is saying, wait, you have to
Yeah.
clean up and have your space clean, and this has to be done. They
Yeah.
just come get the kids and they leave, and that, I think that's been
Yeah.
causing a lot of
Oh,
problems.
yeah, I talked to multiple people there about it, and they all recognize that, you know, they're still trying to work through a lot of those issues.
Which is
At
interesting
lunch.
from the sustainability standpoint, because most research would tell you that going out for recess and coming in for lunch is actually the better thing in terms of reducing the amount of food waste and liquid waste. But there's, there's kind of this, there was this kind of, you get rewarded with recess if you do things right in here.
Yeah.
And now there
There's
isn't
no
that.
carrot.
No.
Yeah.
There's no carrot to dangle anymore, and
Yeah.
so it makes it a little bit, of a challenge, and those are the types of things we're trying to figure out. So like, they aren't as good as they were last year, and that's
Yeah.
okay, because, we're still kind of coming in and watching it and seeing it happen, but we're also learning from all these, observations that can be applied forward to, the next set of schools that want to try this. There are other schools, there's
Yeah,
another
that
school that
reached
came
out.
forward this week
Oh,
that wants to start up, and so, I'll be sharing like our tools with them, and then she's gonna come in and go and observe what's going on in the school. So I've been giving tours like, a lot to different people and groups that wanna come and see what's going on in the schools. And when I go into the middle school that we've started up and all the Leopold, things are functioning and set up, and, it's not maybe perfect, but, people can definitely see that, there's a program in place. So it's good, and, it's spreading, and the school district is really fully behind this, and, we'll see where it goes from here, but it could be pretty exciting how it grows, and you might see it a little bit more prominently within the, little greater Madison community, so it's pretty cool.
Cool. I like it. If there's not any other comments, we can move to item 6, council update.
Yeah, I only had 3 things. The first one is just the solar update, which I know Phil had touched on, that the Plan Commission approved it on January 21st, and that it'll be coming here in February, which is exciting. And then the second update I had is just generically reminding that the comprehensive plan, there's a public hearing on March 10th. I do think reviewing the comprehensive plan, there's several comments about the land use and kind of, as we've already talked about, resources that I think I would encourage everyone once again to review it. And if you have feedback, please email. There's an email on the website specifically dedicated for the planners. But if you email me, I'll make sure to get it out too. That I just think that it's a really valuable time where we can really have some insight and make some changes that we're interested in. And then the last comment is,
Sarah, before you move on, I thought when Sonia came to our meeting last year sometime, she told us that we would have a chance as a commission to review the comprehensive plan before it was finalized?
I think
We did the last comprehensive plan. It went through RCC.
and she did come here. Sonia
Sonia
did.
came in the beginning.
Okay, I don't
And
know.
and I asked that question, would we have an opportunity to review the draft?
Mm.
And she said, yeah, we would.
I guess I remember her coming here and having the conversation and reviewing the draft that they had at that point. I wasn't under the impression that she was going to be coming back.
Is that what we saw in October and that was it?
I don't remember that comment. I thought that was her only presentation.
In
to
October?
RCC.
Yeah.
Okay, I wasn't at the October meeting. Okay,
Was the
never mind.
draft not made available to the RCC?
I think it was still preliminary, but
Okay.
she had a presentation generally of the changes that
Yes,
she
she
was
did.
making.
Right.
She did come here, and
Mm-hmm.
I was under the impression that was her
That
one
was it?
visit. Yeah,
Okay.
but
Okay.
it is on the website. I would strongly encourage everybody to review it if you have a chance. And then my last one is I'd kind of been reaching out to Claudia, that I've received some emails about an apartment building
Mhm.
that unfortunately removed their recycling dumpsters altogether because they were having contamination. And it's so frustrating. And I appreciate that residents are reaching out because they know that that's wrong and they want to work with their apartment building because they realize that recycling is important.
Yeah.
But I just was so frustrated by the interaction that the apartment building could remove their recycling And then kind of just communicating with that resident that there hasn't been very much communication on what's going on. And so I just had that kind of as a conversation that I know the subcommittee had at one point had that as an initiative, but then that individual left. And so I don't know if that's something, but for your previous comment about getting out into the community and having more conversations, like I'd love it if we could have this, just the multiple apartments having nowhere to recycle. That just feels like a heck of a lot of recyclables that are going in the trash.
I don't understand how they can get by doing that, because Wisconsin requires.
It's a state law and it's also a city ordinance that they're required to do that, so we've been following up with them
Okay.
and working with them to get that in place.
Are
At
they-
this point, so
Is there a fine until they
You
do?
can get
So,
fined
so
for-
over it came to our attention, I believe, in December, and then they were like short-staffed because of the holidays, and then they're just short-staffed in general. And
Are
then,
you talking management issues?
yeah,
staff?
management issues on their side at the Pines.
Yeah.
And then we got kind of the police involved, the police liaison, like reached out to them, and they kind of gave them the runaround of, oh, we were getting all of these fines because of people putting trash into the recycling and all of this and the other. And we reach out to them and let them know, no, this is a requirement. This is not something that you can do or not do. You need to, and another requirement is that they're supposed to educate their residents on recycling. So we also gave them educational materials that they could hand out. We encouraged them to improve their signage. We let them know that at other locations, sometimes we put different colored lids, which can help just visually let people know which dumpster is supposed to be recycling versus solid waste. At this point, we've given them a deadline, I believe sometime in the beginning of February. I would have to check my notes. And we've talked to Mike, who's the Director of Public Works, just to get his buy-in on next steps. And the next step will be citations.
They haven't had, so they've been with a month without recycling, and we've not issued any fines?
Well, we've been trying to work with them in terms of getting, because it does also take time to reach out to your vendor to switch it out.
Well, that's really patient on your part, but it's their fault that they did this, and it was rather narrow-minded to do that. I don't understand why we're waiting so long to fine them. We can always forgive the fine if they comply, but, I mean, that's ridiculous.
It has been frustrating on our part as well. But that's kind of the plan at this point, is we're going to start finding, after the deadline that we gave them, that they have to have their new recycling bins in place at that time. And if they miss it, it can be daily citations.
This is part of the educational issue. I mean, I remember the last event that we did at a multifamily event for recycling. I remember Nate holding up an aluminum can and it not being obvious to everybody in the crowd that was a recyclable. When that was drilled into my head when I was young, that this is something you recycle. And so there really has been a gap since the and this is part of what I put into the grant. Like, there has been this gap since curbside recycling rolled out in the 80s, where there hasn't been potentially as much outreach on it, and some people are falling behind on what's recyclable and what's not, and so there needs to be a better educational component to it. Even at that event, I had gone out and did kind of my, an audit of the dumpster and found that, I found clothes in the dumpster. I found a pizza box with pizza pieces hanging out of it. Clearly things that are not recyclable sitting in the recycling container at the apartment complex. And so, it's, I can see where the landlord, could be frustrated with getting the fines on it, because I know that the hauling companies are kind of, leaning down on that. And so, I challenge us, to, what are ways, and I think you've tried to do some things over the last month to try to provide some outreach tools to educate the residents and try to get this back going.
We actually, when we went through this with the last apartment complex,
Mm.
either you or the woman who was involved put together a list of suggestions for apartment managers for what they could do to improve recycling rates. Do you remember where that is? I mean, it was was a great list, and it might be beneficial for you to use that to offer to these people, and certainly if they're having a problem with residents complying, I think rather than taking the recycling dumpster away, contact the city and ask the city for help in educating their residents. I know Dane County has some good brochures on recycling also.
And we did send them educational material that they could print and provide to their residents. So if there was anything specific that you wanted us to send, we could do that, but we basically sent material that's readily available from the DNR.
And I'm not suggesting anything specific for you to send, but hopefully this won't happen again. But we, and I wasn't available, but you guys, and I think you went to the apartment and invited tenants with, the lure of free pizza to come in, and they conducted an educational session on recycling. And maybe that's an answer for these people, these complexes that are having issues.
It's a thought.
For your February finding, will that include the signage and education then? Will any checks be done to see that signage is there? Like, I just am trying to
No,
think
so the ordinance is that they have the containers available.
Okay.
The ordinance doesn't say anything about signage, so that's not something we could cite them for.
Okay, thank you.
But that's something that we gave them as a tool that they should
Help
be
them.
interested
Yes,
in.
they should definitely be interested in it, yeah, okay.
Would it be possible when you are working with them to find out if they would be open to, I'm not saying we would do that, but it's a possibility maybe from the outreach, I don't know who, but would they be open to having people come and do some educational?
I can certainly reach out.
That's kind of
and see
what
if
I'm
they're
suggesting.
Yeah, I
And I
mean-
don't know that it has to be us, it could be staff. I mean, we're not,
Yeah.
we're kind of,
Yeah, and I will say that this year is going to be staff workload is going to be very tight this year. So it's not necessarily something that I want to jump up and volunteer for, but it's something that I can talk to Mike with and see how he feels on if that's something we can fit into workload capacities.
Well, and I think, that's been, our challenges in the past is finding willing people, from the apartments to allow us to come in and do the educational thing. So it sounds like it's a perfect opportunity. They need help. They don't have the ability to, or who knows if they will, but if they know that there are people willing to come and help do the educational piece, it could be a win-win for everyone. So maybe just finding out if they're open to that.
Sure.
Thanks, Sarah.
Yeah, thanks for bringing it up. It's
Yeah,
very
it was
interesting
just
and
sad, yeah.
discouraging.
Yeah,
and
very
Really sad.
frustrating.
Right.
I think we'll look into, we'll hear about this, I guess, or look into it in the future. At least talk about it, so it's
Could you
good.
put that on the agenda for February as a follow-up, please?
Yes. Okay,
Yeah.
number 7, we got the staff update. I know looking at what you guys had typed up, looks like we went through some of it, but if there's anything else you want to quickly go through.
Yep, so the first 2 bullets here are just the Spring Recycling Day event and then the solid waste contract to close the loop on that. That was signed between the city and Pelletieri. The solid waste recycling collection calendar is available online and also at City Hall if residents would like to come pick up a copy.
And it was in the Star
And it was also in the Star.
twice, actually.
Pelletieri, when we had our intern in January, and I had her work on getting some of Pelletieri's recycling tip videos onto the city's website, so we created a page for that. She also updated the recycling guide, which is available for pickup at City Hall and for download at the following address. We incorporated most of your comments, Diane. The one thing that is kind of, I guess, a glaring omission, in my opinion, is you had the request to make the chart into Spanish as well. So what she did is she basically put everything into a Google translator and brought it in as Spanish, but obviously I didn't want to print that because my intern wasn't a native Spanish speaker, so we printed it without the Spanish version of that. I know you mentioned you might have a contact who is
Well,
native.
one of our elders, actually, Julia did something with Fact TV
She did, yeah.
for Spanish, and she might be willing
Yes.
to do that. And that might be, those charts, English and Spanish, might be
Mhm.
really helpful for apartment managers to post.
Okay.
So she might be, this is entering a very busy time of the year for her, but she might be willing to do that.
Okay, well, I can reach out to her and see if that's something she's willing to do. At the moment, I just have it published the way it is, but then if we get that resource, that shouldn't be hard to just add that page in, and then republish it.
There might be other,
My assistant's a Spanish speaker. Native.
Oh, okay.
that would be great. I was gonna say, there might be some other staff members who are fluent in Spanish.
You want to shoot it over to me? I can shoot it to her.
Oh, okay, great, thank you.
Julia thanks you too.
Stormwater update. Last fall, Dakota and I attended an erosion control and stormwater permit compliance training, and we received certification through that. In February, we have the rain garden workshop, which I already mentioned earlier. And then another event that we're holding in February is an erosion control training, which is designed for erosion control permittees, designers, and contractors. It's February 13 at the library. We already have 40 people signed up, so that's
good.
really exciting interest in that.
Is it free?
It is free, yes.
Great.
Who's been your target for that?
So we sent out information about this training to basically everyone who had an erosion control permit last year in the city of Fitchburg. We sent it to permittees and then the folks listed as the designer and the contractor.
Where's that going to be held?
The library.
Great.
When is that, Claudia?
It's February 13 at 9:30 a.m. You're welcome to, anyone here is welcome to attend. We're not really advertising it to the general public because it's not
I'm just curious.
designed for like layman, it's not going to be in layman's terms.
Do we get continuing education credits for it?
Yes, if you're a PE and you want a continuing education credit, you can attend. And that's what I have. Did you want to go over the sustainability?
Yeah, I can do that pretty quickly. The Greens Here Legacy Communities is having their all-member meeting in April, and they asked Fitchburg to host. So the schedule for the library conference room meeting room opens up 90 days in advance. So I think tomorrow I'll be able to put in a request to reserve that that meeting room to host. Just thought I'd be interested to know that they're trying to have that meeting here, so we'll be able to host all of the I guess anybody who's within range and wants to attend in person the all-member meeting here. Anywhere from 40 to 60 people from the Greens Here Legacy Communities are expected to show up. And we'll look to probably have members from the OEI grant have a panel discussion among other presentations for the members, and either Pat Marsh or Mayor Richardson or Sonia or myself will do a welcome and just kind of talk about what Fitchburg has been doing to inspire them all.
Cool.
Phil, when we went through the scheduling for that film, I think, Claudia, that's what we were trying to get scheduled. Apparently the library can actually access their calendar further in advance than the public can.
I had asked Wendy about that. It sounded like she was preferring that I wait until the 90 days out.
Okay. Are we not using the community center for any meetings anymore?
The community center could be a fallback option. I like the library meeting room because, I mean, the Greens Here Communities, it's a LEED gold building. It would be kind of fun to show that off. And it's better equipped for IT capabilities than some of the rooms over in the community center. But if the meeting room, for some reason, somebody gets to it before I do at 9 a.m., then there are other possibilities. But yeah, the community center could be a good backup option as well. And then I'll have, if there's interest in it, I'm sure I'll have more details about that meeting at the sustainability update in February when we've got a little bit more planned out. As Sarah mentioned, the O'Brien Solar Field has been moving forward through committees. Plan Commission approved it on the 21st. So now resolution goes to council tomorrow for referral. And then next month, it should be referred to finance, to RCC, and to the library board, because the library's meters would be subject to this tariff as well. And so talked with Misty and with Wendy about just making sure that the board is fully aware that this would be going through. We'll hear more about that in February as well when we consider the referral. I don't know if I guess I could give a high-level overview, or we can just wait until, I guess I kind of already did with the clean energy resolution. And the final one is just Earth Month planning has begun. Claudia and Anna and I have talked a little bit about that. There's a couple events that are tentatively scheduled. One there, I have the date wrong, the Waterway Cleanups. We had initially talked about the 18th or 19th as the date for the Waterway Cleanup, but with the recycling event on the 18th, obviously we're going with a different weekend. But a few tree planting possibilities. I want to start communicating with some local groups, either Promega, Fitchburg Cycles, the race day events that's going to be moving in with that new building near Sub-Zero, thanks. On some kind of a sustainability bike tour of Fitchburg, or even just like a bike commuting workshop and question and answer session, depending on what the weather is like in mid-April. I think that would be kind of a fun event to have in there for Earth Day, or Earth Month. I think all we have confirmed right now date-wise are the shred event and the Birds of Prey educational event that has been done in the past at the library. Is that right?
I think so, yeah.
Okay. That's all I got for sustainability.
A lot going on. I think so. I just had one additional announcement. There was an item we were talking about in November that kind of was going to be talking about RCC's responsibilities that we had tabled until technically this meeting, but never made its way to the agenda. So take note that it should show up next month.
When we put together the Earth Month calendar, we should include the Promega event, right? Because that's okay.
Absolutely. All right.
Okay, I think we're done. If anyone has anything else.
Anybody know the Badger score?
No, I don't want to hear.
Otherwise, I'll adjourn this meeting.
Do you?
Because I'm an Iowa fan.
Then quit smiling.